Okay. You're good?
Yeah.
Good evening. Today is January 28th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. This is the regular meeting of the Oak Lawn Board of Trustees, meeting number 2014-02. Please take the roll.
President Barry?
Here.
Trustee Quinlan?
Here.
Trustee Olenichik?
Here.
Trustee Desmond?
Here.
Trustee Carberry?
Here.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
And Trustee Strike?
Yes.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We're moving on to public comments today. We're going to start with Mr. Ron Kapp talking about various village matters. And we're keeping comments to 3 minutes, please.
Okay.
And are you an Oak Lawn resident, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
46 years.
Wonderful.
At the last meeting, I mentioned about the snow plowing, and a couple of trustees took it that I was talking about the snowplow drivers themselves. I wasn't. I was talking about the lack of snow that they were able, or the lack of salt that they were able to distribute. Whoever bought the salt must be from Florida, probably Miami, where 400,000 tons would last them for forever. That was something I got very teed off about because I used to drive a snowplow, and I know they have a little bit of snow that's left on the street after the plow goes over, because if you put your plow blade on the street, it's going to get broken. So it's got to be a little bit above the street level. The next thing, are the treasurer and the assistant treasurer here tonight? Because I'd like to find, other than the fact that they made a contribution to your campaign and furnished labor, what other qualifications do they have?
At the end of your 3 minutes, we'll go ahead and let him get into that.
Okay. And the other thing is I'd like to find out when you are going to start being fair and treat all the trustees the same. Mm-hmm. Like at the last meetings, Trustee Strike started to say something, you gavelled them and told Olenichik to make a motion, and this was on the new business thing. And if that, I've seen it where trustee was talking, he was interrupted by Trustee Straight, bang, 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 Trustee Straight, you don't interrupt Trustee Desmond when he's talking. Now, you know, if you're going to be fair about it. That's, it's just, you can't go along being unfair all the time. And then one other thing that, I'll forget it, I'll bring it up next meeting. Oh yeah, the taxes, I got my tax bill yesterday, as most of us did. How come this village only has enough money to pay 60, I think it was 68 point something % of the retirement for village employees? Is there, I mean, are people taking money out of their retirement fund that they have in the village to use for other purposes? I'd like to find out about that also. It kind of bothered me when I saw that on my tax bill. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Kapp, just to answer a couple of your questions off the bat. The salt was purchased in March of 2013. It had nothing to do with most of the people sitting up here today. The tax things I'm going to let be answered by our professionals if they have the data at their disposal. And Pat, our treasurer.
Madam Mayor, I think that's public record already.
Okay.
I don't think he needs to
Okay.
explain himself, but I think it's public record already. I think we can help the gentleman get the information, but we don't need to get into that right now.
I would just throw in there that I just strongly agree with him that we should be putting more into the pensions. That's exactly what we've been trying to do over the last sort of 8 months. So there's a strong disagree there. As far as my own background, I'll go first and you go next? Sure. Okay, so I graduated UIC. I don't know how much detail. I'm going to take 1 minute or 30 seconds or less. Went to UIC, got a degree in electrical engineering with a special specialty in semiconductor physics. I went from there, focused, and did fault-tolerant operating systems for the Rockwell International for a couple of years, then moved on and did design work for basically designing front office systems for trading systems for equities, foreign exchange, and bond systems downtown. Was purchased by a bunch of different banks, changed their names a bunch of different times, ended up at an investment bank where I was became the CIO for that investment bank for the last 6 years. Is that enough?
You're a braggart, Pat.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Okay, next, public,
Just kidding.
Does he, my background, I'm,
And he's not my assistant.
my title's a finance director, and I came here, it's now about 6 years ago. My background is I graduated from Notre Dame in 1980, went to Northwestern for my MBA, graduated in 1991, and have spent most of my career at Fruit of the Loom as the treasurer and ultimately the CFO. So while I came here without a lot of municipal background, I think what we've tried to do, and I couldn't agree with Pat more, I think we agree that 68% is not the number that we'd like to see in our pension funds. And one of the things we're going to show later is one of the strategies that we have to try to build that number up. But I also want to point out that on that bill, the village's percentage was higher than almost everyone else on that bill. So anyway, we will get into the whole pension issue later on this evening.
Braggart.
I don't even blame this board.
okay,
You guys
we're
haven't
gonna,
been in there long enough to screw things up.
we're gonna move on with our public comments. Elizabeth McCarthy, she's talking about the 911, I assume center. And
Yes.
are you an Oaklawn resident?
No,
Okay, thank you.
sure. My name is Elizabeth McCarthy. I'm one of the 14 dispatchers that was fired on last Tuesday. I'm just here to clarify a few things for everyone. First and foremost is that we as a collective unit did not agree to this settlement with the village. I'm sure that the village manager is going to try and sell to all of you that this was some wondrous agreement between the dispatchers and the village and that everyone is happy and pleased. That is 100% false. This labor dispute was settled solely between the village and our union. It was not a vote, and each and every one of us were blindsided the following morning after the labor meeting with the decision. I'm here because it's vital to all of our supporters that they understand that we in no way voted on or agreed to this. I am here to tell the residents and every police officer and firefighter that came out and stood with us that we never agreed to anything. I want to make this clear to all of you and alleviate any doubt that you may have. This was in no way a choice that the dispatchers made. Second, I'm disappointed in the village making us feel like we actually had a shot at keeping our jobs. We were told to drive out to Elmhurst for testing, then again for interviews. It's now crystal clear that myself and those who voiced any kind of opinion or have even dedicated 25 years of their life to this village never stood a chance. Originally, the village told us that most of us would be retained. That was a lie. 5 people out of 19 were kept. The rest, now you've got a center staffed with brand new people that are part-time who know next to nothing of what goes on in that room. The village was promised 23 full-time members by Norcom. They've got 5. Director Hansen made the choice not to rehire qualified, experienced, and dedicated employees because of her own insecurities for failing the center. She is the reason that it failed, not me, and certainly not my coworkers, the police officers, the firemen, the residents, or the budget. This was never a budget issue. This was bad management at its finest. Kathy took a highly qualified center that was regarded, or a highly qualified and regarded center, and sunk the center and all of its employees.
I can't allow personal attacks
Okay.
during a board meeting, especially
I
with
was-
respect to employees.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was disgusted to hear that last Tuesday night, after 14 people had been fired, that the village manager, the mayor, the director, and the team leaders openly celebrated their win in the radio room, shaking hands and congratulating each other while 14 people just lost their livelihood. I'm not here out of spite or anger. I'm here because I believe in truth and honesty. Watching when my grandfather was mayor for years, he always led by example. He put the residents' safety and their well-being above all else. Personal gain was never a thought. He was not the type of man to celebrate in the face of failure and deceit, especially at the loss of honest, hardworking employees that have dedicated themselves to the pursuit of helping others. To be honest, I'm relieved to be free of the stress that Kathy and the center has brought to my life the last year and a half. I love my job. But watching the center crumble under her management is an atrocity. It's
Again,
a
no
train wreck.
personal attacks, please.
Oh, sorry, okay. The support of those who actually know what we do means more to all of us than the opinion or personal issues with the village manager or the director, and what they carry within themselves that would cause them to believe that firing the best people in the business would somehow be beneficial to the residents of this great town.
Thank you. And Lori, I can't quite read your name, Sipranowski?
My name is Lori Sipranowski. I am not an Oak Lawn resident.
Thank you.
Until last week, I was a 20-year veteran dispatcher, proudly, of Oak Lawn Central Dispatch, and I was laid off as well. Anything I say is not going to make a difference. What's done is done. The damage is done. It's been heard that as a group, as a radio room of 911 operators, we have all agreed on this so-called settlement, and that is not true. We did not. So it shows you cannot always believe what you hear from people that are allowed to speak publicly. As a resident of Bridgeview, a town that this 911 center dispatches for, I'm concerned for the safety of my family. If I need to call for an ambulance for my daughter, my kitchen's on fire, somebody's breaking into my home, I'm no longer confident with the level of expertise of the people that are handling these calls. Speaking to the police officers for all the towns that we dispatch for, Burbank, Bridgeview, Evergreen Park, Oak Lawn, they have said many mistakes are being made and not being corrected, and they also are concerned for the officer's safety, and it's being compromised. It was said that 7 to 9 dispatchers of all that tested and applied would be hired, and only 5 did, roughly with 3 with 5 years or less experience. So you basically have a full radio room in training at the same time. So again, not here to change what's happened, the damage is done. But we just don't want this to end on a lie, and we would like you to hear from us, because we were pretty much silenced at the end. So what's done is done, and we just wanted you to hear this. That's it.
Thank you. Amy Goldsmith. Hi, Amy. Are you an Oak Lawn resident?
I am.
Excellent, thank you.
I have been an Oak Lawn resident for 16 years and a dispatcher for the 12 years, the last 4.5 here in Oak Lawn, until last week when I was laid off. I would like to thank everyone who did support us and let them know that, again, we did not agree to the settlement between the village and the union. We had no say-so in it whatsoever. I also would like to say that 2 of the 5 that were continued on with the position with Norcom did hit, well, 3 of the 5 had less than 4 years experience, 2 of which I trained. But yet when I received my email from Norcom stating that I was not allowed to continue on, that a position was not offered, that they had several qualified applicants, I was not one, but yet trained 2 that did continue on with less seniority than me. I just don't quite understand how the hiring process works, knowing that there are still so many new people in that room. And my concern as a resident is knowing that the level of expertise is not there, and that I really feel that our officers, citizens, neighbors, and friends are really going to suffer from what has taken place due to the decisions based on the village by letting us go.
Thank you. I just want to say in follow-up, thank you for coming. I wish you the best of luck. And on behalf of the board, I'm sure we would all agree we wish you the best. The village can't publicly talk about labor issues, but I do want to say these types of breakdown in communication, you know, I think are part of the reason for the problem. I've always felt we could communicate better. So that being said, you know, gonna move on. Donald Wilkinson.
Yes, I'm ready. Moving on.
Okay. Hello, I'm Donald Wilkinson. I am not a resident of Oak Lawn. I'm a former resident, though, that has lived in the area of hometown and Oak Lawn all of my adult life. I live in Oak Forest currently. My daughter, granddaughter, actually she's like my daughter, was Kayla Luntine, who everybody is aware on the council, was killed in an accident at Southwest Highway and Cicero in May of 2012. My daughter, Krista, and I are here. We want to gratefully thank the mayor and the village for moving quickly with the proposed changes that you're looking at right now. on Southwest Highway and Cicero to try and improve the intersection for all pedestrians and traffic. We were approached initially when we first started coming to City Hall by many people from the area who had either lost loved ones or had people that were in traffic or pedestrian accidents over the last 30 or 40 years at that intersection. And the way it has existed has been kind of a nightmare. It's an extremely long way to cross. It's 108 feet if you were to compare it to the intersection of 95th and Cicero. It's about 40% farther to cross. Some of the proposed changes now will shorten that distance and will improve the intersection greatly. One of the areas that we wanted to address tonight was the addition of speed cameras or red light cameras. One of the things that happens with there's one at 95th and Cicero now. When you put these red light cameras in, you get the people that are abusers or chronic speeders. They will go to other streets to avoid those intersections because they want to speed. They're always in a hurry or running late or whatever. We have noticed and have done quite a bit of observation on Southwest Highway and Cicero since we go through here all the time, and we actually purchased a Bushnell speed gun, and over the last 20 months we've done quite a bit of work watching the traffic, and frequently traffic speeds at 30 to 50% in excess of the speed limit on a regular basis. Some people going in excess of 50 miles an hour every third or fourth light cycle, traveling through the intersection eastbound during rush hour, and in the evening coming home from rush hour. Those are the two critical times of the day when the intersection is the most unsafe. The intersection appears to be safer in the slower parts of the day because there are far fewer cars and people are in less of a hurry. So what we'd like to advocate for, in addition to the changes that you're proposing, which are great, and we thank you, is the possibility of adding either a red light camera to that intersection or a speeding camera. To the Oakland Police, like all the other police departments, everybody's budgets are tight, it's hard, they can't patrol. It used to be a speed trap and people used to slow down there. You can't do it anymore. Just we don't have the resources. But we do have the technology today that can do these things for us and can also raise revenues for the city, and will slow down and stop these abusers and I'm sure prevent other accidents, pedestrian and traffic-wise as well in the future. And I'd like you to consider that also with the proposals that you're considering now with IDOT. And thank you again for including us.
Thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that is it for the public comments, correct, Jane? Okay. I'd like to call Mr. Brian Costin to the podium. And Josh, I understand you have a little bit to do there. Josh is going to pass out some things. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Sure. I'm tall, so can you hear me? All right. My name is Brian Costin, and I am the Director of Government Reform at the Illinois Policy Institute. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And one of the issues that's very near and dear to our heart is online transparency of local government entities. So back in 2010, we created a 10-point transparency checklist that we recommend local governments to adopt, and that includes things such as contact information for elected officials, meeting information, Freedom of Information Act requests, budget audits, expenditures, employee compensation, lobbying, taxes, and contracts. And so since 2010, we've been going around and looking at websites across the state, and we created a Sunshine Award, which I'm here to present to the Village of Oak Lawn. To put that in perspective, to get the Sunshine Award, you need an 80% or better on our checklist, and we've only had 52 local governments across the state of Illinois who have earned this award, and that's out of more than, or almost 7,000. So that's less than 1 in 100 local government agencies have achieved this honor. And I wanted to present this award to the mayor in regards to our appreciation for doing such a great job in regards to online transparency.
We have a pair for you, sir.
Fantastic. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is a first, so.
Well, this is a very special thing for all of Oak Lawn. I want to thank the residents who supported this change. I want to thank the village staff. Josh, you and your team, can't thank you enough for the hard work to make it real. The village board members who supported transparency to this level. I love that it's one of the coldest days of the year, and we're talking sunshine in Oak Lawn. And could I get a group shot with the board with sunglasses? Anyone have an interest in coming up for a group shot?
Let's go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Tom, Joanne?
Do you want to stand in front over there?
Why don't we stand center? Okay.
Stand center.
Okay. Well, come on. Guys.
Yeah.
Here, Paul.
Wait, you want some beads?
Get in there.
I'm not wearing glasses either.
Shocked out. I would only do this for Oak Lawn.
What?
Okay.
Not your beads,
We still have a lot more work to do.
Oh, Brian,
All right.
I was so excited I forgot to give you
Grandson.
some Oak Lawn flashlights to shine the light
Oh, thank you.
and
So I could dig it.
little
Very
sunshine
fitting.
momentum.
Very.
Thank you. Okay.
How old is he? How old?
Okay, thank you so much for making the trip out. Okay, item 5 on the agenda is a request to approve the Germanizing Race 5K Run Walk for April 12th, 2014, starting at 9 o'clock a.m.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve that race.
Properly moved by trustee Warder, seconded by trustee Carberry. Any discussion on this item?
Nettie from St. Germain is over here.
Would you like to say a few words?
hopefully it goes as good as last.
Come on up to the podium and state your name if you could.
Antoinette Kestner,
Okay.
and I'm from St. Germain, and thank you for all the village support for the race.
We hope it's wildly successful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Please take the roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Trustee Warder, I would like to move your remarks under new business up on the agenda. May I have a motion, please, to do that?
Motion.
That was
Alex.
trustee Oliniechek, properly moved, seconded by trustee Quinlan. Please call the roll.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Warder, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I wish to take a little block of my time to recognize a long Oak Lawn resident who passed away last month. Lived in Oak Lawn in District 4, my district, for more than 50 years. Mr. Richard Gumber and his family his family is here. Would you step up to the podium? Madam President, would you please read this proclamation as the mayor of Oak Lawn for us? You have it? Oh, it's up there.
So nice to meet you. Thank you. So nice to meet you. We all look like family. This is a proclamation for Richard Gumber. Whereas Richard Gumber was born in Chicago in 1924 and grew up in the West Lawn on the south side, and whereas Richard Gumber graduated from Lindblom Technical High School. And whereas Richard Gumber served in the United States Army from 1943 to 1945. Whereas Richard Gumber was a crane operator for the American Bridge Company and worked on dozens of noteworthy projects around the Chicago area, among them the John Hancock Center, 333 West Wacker Drive, 3 First National Plaza, Madison Plaza, One Financial Place, and Citigroup Center. And whereas Richard Gumber's work extended beyond buildings, he also worked on the realignment of Lakeshore Drive's famous S-curve in the mid-1990s and on the Columbus Drive and Randolph Street bridges over the Chicago River. And whereas the pinnacle of Richard Gumber's career was his work on the Sears Tower, he manned the crane that brought the final beams to the top of the skyscraper. And whereas Richard Gumber took video and photos of the Sears Tower project and provided those to makers of 2 documentaries on the construction of the Sears Tower. One was an episode of Modern Marvels on the History Channel, which aired in 2004, and the other was If You Build It on the Travel Channel in 2004. Whereas Richard Gumber was a member of Local 150 operating engineers for more than 50 years, and whereas Richard Gumber passed away on December 30th, 2013. Now therefore, I, Sandra Berry, Village President of the Village of Oak Lawn, along with the Board of Trustees, recognize Richard Gumber for his long career as a Local 150 operating engineer and a resident of Oak Lawn for more than 50 years, dated this 28th day of January, 2014.
Not only did Rich build skyscrapers, but Rich, in the very early days of Oak Lawn, built some residential property, including yours, right? So this man was a jack of all trades. Yeah. Did you have something you'd like to say?
No, I just would like to thank everybody for...
Yeah, come on to the microphone.
I'd like to thank everybody for acknowledging him.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
If I could, Mayor,
Coming out.
Mayor, if I could, before the family leaves,
Yes.
if I could ask you to come to the podium one more time. I shared this with Trustee Vorderer, but probably my most enjoyable job in my life was summertime working on the John Hancock building. A professor of mine at college was the gentleman who wrote the famous book, Richard Schultz, on skyscrapers in Chicago.
Okay.
And from there, I had 2 internships in the summertime with sheet metal workers when we were building the air conditioning and heating system on the 98th floor at the top of the Hancock.
Okay.
And when I left my work with the sheet metal workers, I had developed a relationship with the steel workers. And I don't even know if I had the opportunity to meet your father, but when I left, they gave me the cut-off end of the beam from the 70th floor, which I've always retained from back in 1960s. It's probably one of my best bookends ever. So I can tell you that during that construction, I believe 7 construction workers lost their life. It was an extremely difficult job, particularly the steel workers who worked on that building. And it was absolutely a magnificent building. At the time, it was the world's tallest vertical building that had mixed use, residential, office, and retail.
Okay.
And it was a famous building. Skidmore, Owings, Merrill, out of Chicago were the architects. And I salute your dad. It's a great job.
My uncle, but he was just like our dad because he had no kids. So
I salute him.
We had 2 dads.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate. So thank you.
That's hilarious.
Madam President, I do have one more thing I'd like to mention. I'd like to introduce our newest addition to our police department. His name is Colt, and he's a 1.5-year old Belgian Shepherd Malinois. Is that correct, Chief? Malinois. Malinois, okay. Whatever. I call them German Shepherds. Okay, and he was brought over here from Holland. He's 1.5 years old, and he's currently receiving 5 weeks of training, which will be followed by some additional training right here in-house. And he'll be trained for obedience, tracking, drug detection, and apprehension. And if it all goes as planned, Colt will be patrolling Oaklawn streets with his handler in February for many years of service. And I think it's fair to mention that this dog, when the mayor was elected, she contributed half her salary to the Oaklawn Police Department, which she has done, and half of that dog was purchased with the mayor's salary. So
Don't
thank
say
you,
which
Mayor.
half, don't say which half. Thank you. Any other new business?
No, that's all I have,
Okay.
Madam.
Very good, thank you. Conflict of interest disclosure. Does anyone have a conflict to disclose with any item on today's agenda?
I actually do, Mayor.
Yes, Trustee Quinlan.
In regards to the agenda item for Steve Radis, for the, his new position, his contract, Steve and his wife Noreen have, been friends for many years, so I do have to abstain from that vote.
Okay. Thank you. Any other conflicts to disclose? Trustee Desmond.
On item 18D, I believe I may have.
Mm-hmm.
I did receive a donation.
Okay. Is that the adjudication one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Will that preclude me from voting?
Well, it's not currently, let me start with my portion. And one of the items on today's agenda is village adjudicator. And I'm just going to disclose that in the days before April's election, Mr. Odelson contacted me to say he was writing a letter of endorsement. This was without solicitation on my part. In fact, I only think I met him once before that. I did disclose it to the State Board of Elections, and I want to disclose it tonight as well. We have an ethics policy here. It currently does not cover campaign contributions of this nature, only business relationships. However, I thought it was important to go above and beyond. I don't want anyone to think, that this was not being disclosed. That being said, there's no need to recuse from voting on it, but should it be needed.
Thank you.
Because it's not currently, but if the Ethics Committee would like to put that through, I'd be supportive. Okay. Tim, did you want to continue, or?
No, that answers my question too.
Okay.
Thanks.
Were there any other conflicts to disclose with any item on tonight's agenda? Okay, we're going to move on. Item 7 on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes for the regular meeting minutes, 2014-01, dated January 14th, 2014. May I have a motion on item 7?
Motion to approve.
Properly moved by Trustee Carberry,
Second.
seconded by Trustee Desmond. Any discussion on this item? Please take the roll.
Trustee Quinlan.
Abstain.
Trustee Oliniechek.
Yes.
Trustee Desmond.
Yes.
Trustee Carberry.
Yes.
Trustee Vorder.
Yes.
Trustee Strike.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0-1.
Thank you. Item 8 on the agenda is a presentation by Village Treasurer Pat O'Donnell, and this is an update on Oaklawn's structural deficit. Mr. O'Donnell, would you care to take the podium?
Me and Brian are both doing this one.
Brian Hannigan as well, our finance director.
My assistant. So I think we're going to have a... Oh, I had to click it. I'm sorry. There you go. Where do I point back there? Okay, so key takeaways from just trying to bring up, we passed the budget on December 10th. Going to talk about just some of the key takeaways and sort of some of the things that have transpired since then. So we talked about at that point the deficit was at $3.4 million, and again echoing one of the citizens talking about it, this is all in the process of trying to put more money toward our pension funds and reduce our debt. So the deficit was at $3.4 million. Now it's at $4.6 million. There's an overrun in terms of some of the 111th costs which won't allow us to to pay down as much debt as we had hoped to. So that's why it's kind of increased. Brian will talk a little bit more about that in the future. I want to remind everybody that Moody's will do its review again in July of 2014. The last 2 consecutive years we've been downgraded. The last time we were downgraded, and we also got a negative bias. If we get downgraded once again, we'll also, at that point, get a $200,000. Some of the covenants inside some of our debt will trigger extra payments of about $200,000 at that point. And I'll, again, talk a little bit more about that. So we've talked with some of the trustees and the mayor on trying to figure out how to put our best foot forward and try to, in all cases, try to stop the downgrade. And so we've came up with the need to decrease the deficit by $2.3 million annualized. And we'll again talk about. I'll talk about all these later. If we have no movement in the fire department by June, then we'll have to look at cutting the last $2.3 million. If we have no movement in terms of the fire department overtime, then we'll look at that. So then if we actually can go through and we can find these either added cuts or increased revenues, we can resubmit a budget before April 30th, hopefully increasing our contributions to both pension funds and or reducing our debt. Going forward, and Brian's going to talk a little bit more about the overall debt in terms of where that's going. So real quick, if you can switch slides. I'll try to make this relatively quick. Go back to one. So this is a slide I've kind of put up a couple different times, talking about like sort of what we did in the last 6 years. I've kind of mentioned these things, so real quick, our expenditures did our revenues by $10 million a year. We increased taxes by 5.8. We increased our debt from 54 to 100 million. We didn't pay our recommended pension contributions. We underpaid it by $4 to $5 million a year. Downgraded by both rating agencies. And the last one, which is really key as well, which is 2010, there was a public safety law put in effect that starts in 2016, which will allow the police and fire pension funds to basically grab our sales tax and put it toward the pension if we're not paying to the 90% level at that point. So kind of coming forward, what did we do in 2013? The deficit went down to $8 million. It's kind of, you're missing a piece of the side there, but
Tim, is there a way up to the right? The structural deficit in 2013 was about $8 million. You can't really see it in.
You're cutting off the far right end. I'll keep.
Well, we can just keep talking.
Yep. So anyways, the structural deficit was reduced from $13 million in 12 to $8 million in 2013. Debt was basically break even. We had no new tax increases, but we still deferred the pension contribution by $4.5 million. And as I already said, we got downgraded by Moody's last summer. So 2014, where are we at? Now we've agreed that we are going to sit there and include the pension funding as part of our overall, that's the number we're going to try to go forward and try and be balanced. So if you kind of look at the 3 years from 2012 to 13 to 14, we went from $17.5 million to $12.5 million to now $4.6 million is our deficit. We hope to decrease our debt in 2013. Brian's going to talk more about that. And I talked a little bit about some of the tax and service fee increases we had. We passed through $900K of water costs from Chicago. We increased our sewer revenues by $800K, and we decreased our property taxes by $300K. The 111th TIF there's a bunch of different overages, which is going to preclude our debt pay down. And as I said, Moody's will review us this summer. Next one.
All right, this will be a little hard to follow because the numbers are to the far right. I'm not sure why that's not showing up, Tom. But what I wanted to kind of talk about this, what's the makeup of the structural deficit? We've delayed the Public Works meeting in November. Trustee Olenich is the chairman of that. We had talked about potentially $7 million of various infrastructure needs. We have cut back that number. We're still going to do a number of streets and alleys as we see what happens during the winter months, but we've cut that number back by approximately $1.2 million. The deferred contributions, we still committed a significant increase to our pension funds, but the actuarial number is $1.5 million. So if you look at the makeup of the structural deficit, $1.2 million is related to some delays in streets and alleys. 1.5 is because we've put more money into the pension funds, but not quite the level that the actuary has recommended. Pat and I have, we feel pretty strongly that the village has committed to retiree medical, and that's never been funded at all by the village. We have cut that back to about $200,000, so that's $400,000 of that number. And then sewer infrastructure, Pat just talked about how much we had put through. The water increase is really just a pass-through, pure and simple from what the city of Chicago has done to Oak Lawn and everyone else. So we didn't increase water rates at all. We just passed through the cost of the raw material to residents. On the sewer side, we do have a need for some sewer rehabilitation, and that was the $800,000. The number that we had talked about initially with Public Works was about $1.1 million. So we're going to see how those projects go, and that represents about $300,000, that number. So that number, if you could see it, was the 3.4. And there's an additional $1.2 million that has to do with dealing with some of the overpayments. It's not overpayments, but some of the additional costs for the GeoPier, some other detention needs out at 111th Street. We still think, I'll show you later how we're going to address that, but the reduced debt pay down is another 1.2. So that's the makeup of the 4.6 million. I just wanted to touch base. This budget, going back 10 years, and again, this has nothing to do with this board or the previous board. The fact of the matter is Oak Lawn has balanced its budget based on a deferral of street resurfacing and other infrastructure projects going back as far as 2003, and you can see we did $1.6 million, 1.6 million streets, 2.2, and then you can see what the previous board committed to kind of address the infrastructure needs of the village. In addition, the village has balanced its budget on a deferral of pension contributions. So as I said, when we've had our numerous budget meetings with Pat and with the board, this whole budget is about streets and pensions. And I just wanted to show, going back 10 years, when we talk about 185 miles of paved streets, kind of, the bell-shaped curve of what we've done the last 10 years. Pat will kind of go through kind of our ratings and our concern about that.
So if you kind of look, I've kind of had Joanne kind of color code these things. And this is just all the people that are in our water deal, as well as I tried to just pick other communities that were, around us. Not every municipality gets rated, and not every municipality has public debt that gets traded, and that's kind of what determines whether somebody gets rated or not. But this shows you basically the different ratings. In the top three, Naperville, Downers Grove, Olympia Fields, they're all the AAAs. You can sort of see the next level, and it kind of goes down from AA1s or AA pluses if you're looking at Standard & Poor's, and it goes down all the way to the AA minuses. We're currently in the third group with Country Club Hills and Palos Hills. We're at A1 with a negative watch, which means I talked about this earlier, which means we're more likely or not. Both Brian and I agree that it's more probable that where we sit today, we're going to get downgraded again. And again, there is a cost. The cost last time we got downgraded was $25,000. This time it's $190,000 additional. If we were to get downgraded again and then yet again, then two levels, and then we would go non-investment grade. And at that point, there'd be a heck of a lot more costs.
I think the point here we wanted to make is that this board, and we have done a lot of things. We've bumped up our fund balance, and you'll see those in the 2013 numbers. Obviously, the deficit, Pat talked about it going from 18 million to 8 million to 4.6 this year. All of those are terrifically positive. I think when we talk about it being more likely than not, we don't want to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy either. We think we're going to do a presentation to both agencies that will reflect our new numbers. But we just wanted to point out where Oak Lawn was in the whole scheme of ratings, and that we don't have a lot of room, because I don't think that the last thing I think we want to be is a non-investment grade community. So that was the point of that slide, obviously.
And one thing I'll just reiterate is if you look at, what's the 90% level that you're supposed to do with pensions? It's the 7.2 million
It's
number?
7.2 times 90%, so 6.5 million.
Okay, 6.5 million. And currently, even where we kind of sort of budgeted for the pensions, it's at 2.3 times 2, which is 4.6. And so there's a bunch of the gaps. So if we can sort of, further cut costs or get other revenues, either one's just as good, we could sit there and apply that extra money to either the pensions or reducing our debt. As I said, starting in 2016, we'll lose a little bit of the flexibility where the unions will start pushing that, it could start taking that and moving it into the pension funds if we're not at that 90% level.
Real quick, and I'll run through this. We're almost done. I know there's a lot more exciting things to be done tonight than go through our finances. But the debt summary, which again it's hard to see, but basically we talked about this at one of the meetings in December. Our debt is basically around $95 million. 2013's debt, the pay down will be about flat, and that's kind of where we'll be at the end of 2014. The way to think of the village's debt, and we want to aggressively pay down as much debt as we can in anticipation of the state law that's going to hit the village and other municipalities in 2016. So we want to be prepared for that by taking down our debt balance, which decreases the risk in the village. When you look at our debt, you need to think of it in sort of different pockets of funds. The biggest one being the Regional Water Fund, which this board is committed to a $175 million project, of which our share of that is 10%. So again, you can't see the numbers there, but just if you look at in ballpark terms, there's about $122 million of debt at the end of 2014. Approximately $90 million of that is what you would call village debt, and that's what we want to focus on paying down over the next 3 to 4 months. Real quick, if you look at a pie-shaped chart, these are kind of the buckets. Real quick, 111th Street is that pie shape that's kind of a brown, 24%, 33%. That maroon-shaped pie is the Build America debt that was used to kind of address a lot of the infrastructure needs that the village has had, or that were deferred over from that previous slide. And the pie up in the upper right corner for 19%, that's the debt that we think we can pay down over the next coming months, year and a half, to kind of decrease the level of risk in the village to deal with the pension obligations. Again, you can kind of see it there. It has the total VOL debt of $89 million, total debt's $138 million. Again, the water debt, the village had a history of issuing general obligation bonds for all of its debt, including the water side of the village. That's been changed over the last year to the focus with both Larry and our whole team, Jack Gallagher, Joanne, and a number of us. I don't want to leave anyone out. Ken Ritter. We've all been focused on a lot of on the master water agreements with these outside communities, and that regional water debt is all going to be revenue bonds, which means everyone shares in their share of it. So it's not a general obligation bond of the village. And as I said, our share of that is 10%, which is in that $89 million. So to use the numbers that Pat just talked about, we had about $100 million at the end of 2012. That number will be about $95 million at the end of 13 and about $90 million at the end of 14. So again, we're going to try to pay down debt faster than that, which again will set us up for a less risky municipality. This is just the same pie showing the breakdown. Again, this is after the pay down, showing the percentages. Pat, do you want to talk to the pension fund real quick? I think we wanted to point out, this is a snapshot of where our pension funds ended up during 2013. And
so there's a couple people that said, are we taking into account that there's been a great bull market? And I don't think everyone quite understood how the pension dynamics work, so I thought this would be one good time to just sort of work through it. Unfortunately, you only can see the fire. The police are for some reason we're having a technical difficulty and you can't see all the way to the right-hand side. But The fire is very indicative. The funds are very, very the same, so this is good enough. The beginning asset value was $71 million. That's how much assets we started the year at. The employer contributions, the city made $1.2 million of contributions. The employees kicked in $0.7. The net investment, how much we made from our $71 million was $4.4 million. How much we paid out to benefit payments and deductions, $5.5 million. So you can see where our end asset value, those numbers will kind of add up, and you'll end up with $72.2 million. You can see it increased by $800,000. Now, over the years, especially if there's some folks that I think that they think that there's going to be sort of 40% of the fire department which is going to retire in the next 5 years. That number, in terms of the total benefit payment and deductions, will balloon at that point. And that's where the spiraling, and one of the reasons why we think so strongly that we have to be paying more into these pension funds. So the last couple things, the historical return rate that we've gotten over the last 25 years is 7.4%. The 2013 rate of return was 7%. The 3-year return that we've got, 6.4%. The composite index, which is our benchmark, which we try to achieve, it was at 13.8, so we underperformed a bit. And the S&P returned 33%. So a lot of folks kind of like look at it and say, well, if the S&P returned 33%, why did we only return 7%? And just so you know, the state law requires us that we have to have 35% of our funds in fixed income. There's been a gigantic bull market in fixed income that's gone from sort of 14% down to 4%, and so it's going to be very hard with the way that we have to compose the fund to sort of achieve, in my view, long-term 7%. Rates of return, and Brian, I know, agrees with me. So I don't know if I'll leave it with that.
I'll just leave this. The point of this whole slide is that we use a 7% long-term discount rate of return, and I think when you look at the performance of both the fire and the pension fund, which are really snapshots of each other, they're very similar. Yeah, that's probably it. It's a little easier to read. Leave that, Tom, for a minute. The 13% composite index that Pat referred to is really the benchmark of the pension fund's portfolio, and again, that's based on the current money managers, and our rate of return is influenced by the fact that we, as he said, had 35%. Actually, our money manager had it around 40% in fixed income based on state law. So, but I think the long-term rate of return of 7% is a pretty is supported by all these rates of return. So that was the point of just kind of giving you a snapshot of what happened in 2013 for the pension funds. With that, Mayor, I think that's just a snapshot and an update.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. And then
So-
we're not
so-
talking about this?
We're going to have that on the website. too.
Okay.
I'll let Larry go after me, but if we could do, I think one thing I just want to end it with, because I don't think all the rest of the slides are Larry's, is so I think the next step is we have to kind of go, even though it's very painful, I think we have to go back into sort of the pension process, or the pension process, the budget process, and sort of, again, try to, scrub a little bit harder and come up with a little bit more money and try to do the best we can, do whatever we can before sort of April, at least by mid-May, before sort of the Moody's and S&P sort of take a relook at our
Well, I think
rating.
we're going to come back to the board with some refinancing opportunities in February and March to do the aggressive debt pay down. We'll explain it to the board with the hope that that can be part of what will address some of the budget deficit. And then that excess money would go into the pension funds.
Does anyone have questions?
One of the comments you made was, streets or pension.
Right.
Either or, right? That's not all together.
No, it's not. I
Hopefully
didn't
that's
mean to say it was all either or. We've done a number of, in the current budget, we have a budget for streets. I'm just saying when.
It suffered this year, it suffered because of, that's our commitment
Right.
to the pension.
Exactly.
Yes. And I just
Carol?
think, one other thing, you kind of went on for a bit. Everyone's here listening to the numbers while you guys go through this thing. What does it mean? Okay, we're in agreement. We're not going to, no one here I don't think is going to argue whether it's 7% return or 6.9% return or 7.1% return.
Right.
Right? And that's okay to talk about it, I guess, but what does it mean to us, right? How short are we? What do we got to do to
Well,
Where are
I
you
think the
advising?
resident,
Where are we going into? What do we got to go after? Where do we got to get? That's what we got to talk about.
right. Well, the resident brought up the fact that we, on everyone's tax bills, we were at 68% of the village's committed pensions. My opinion is we need to be pushing towards the 90% level, 80 to 90%, because that A is the target that is what state law is going to tell us we have to be at. Again, it's phased in. 2016 is a third, 2017 is 2/3, and 2018. So I think we're trying to get the board to buy in with our recommendation is to get debt paid down, decrease the risk of the village, and to commit more towards the pension funds. And so to answer your question, Mike, I think the goal would be to try to be, by the end of this decade, somewhere in the 80 to 90% range, and that what the resident brought up on their tax bill. And still, not, again, we've had this discussion with the Public Works Group, but not to divorce ourselves from the fact that we need to continue to do infrastructure, because we can't go back to what 2003 had, which is, Jack Gallagher could tell you, we deferred a lot of those projects. So in this current budget, we haven't taken out infrastructure, we've just decreased it from what the levels that we were at when we had $35 million of funding.
Yeah, and I just think, caution, I mean, we're kind of, this 111th Street's not going away, right?
Right.
He's mentioning there's some unforeseen. Larry, is that correct? We have a few extra expenses in 111th
We're
Street?
going to be talking about that in a second.
Yeah, that happens.
Right.
But,
which is why, Mike, sorry to interrupt, but the refinancing opportunity, which I'll work with Larry on, will give us the money that we would have, that was in those overages, to still go back to that 1.2 million to pay down the debt, which then will go into the pension funds. So it doesn't mean, I think what we're trying to tell the board is right now, based on the preliminary look of 2013, the budget deficit looks like it's about 4.6 if we don't do anything, but we've got some things that we're going to come back to the board for your approval on.
Carol?
My comment, I mean, it sounds like definitely concerned about us being downgraded. And, that we should be acting sooner rather than later to avoid that from happening is what I'm hearing from the presentation and from meeting with Pat also. So are you guys suggesting possibly that this board get together and have some type of a budget workshop to work with you guys on this?
We were going
or-
to try for the last week in February. I was going to talk about that at the end, but yeah, we need more. Yeah, it's exceedingly painful, but not as painful as being downgraded.
Well, just so we're clear too, Mayor, the downgrades that Pat talked about has really not cost us anything. The way spreads are now with interest rates as low as they are, frankly, the spreads are so tight that it hasn't, I think he talked about it being about $25,000, and these are all in our debt covenants. The last downgrade cost us, ballpark $25,000. If we were downgraded in the summer, it'd be about $189,000. It's all driven by the 111th Street debt, which is a floating rate piece of debt. I think if we go to a non-investment grade rating, and again, we are still a ways away from that, as Pat said, two rating categories. It eliminates, or it doesn't eliminate, it inhibits the flexibility that the village has to go to the debt market at cost-effective rates. And the difference between the two, just to give everyone that chart, maybe we can go back to that. Where's the, do you have it?
You want
Pat,
the
or-
packet?
No, just the rating, well, the rating agency grid, Tom, if we can go back to that. Just, okay, if you go by that Matson, that brown at the bottom, the difference in rate cost is about 100 basis points, which is 1%. So if we take all of our debt and we had to go to the market with it, and again, it's mostly when you issue debt, it's not when you've already got your debt. Debt gets traded, but it would cost, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1 million a year. On $100 million, I'm just doing ballparks, 1% on $100 million costs the village about $1 million a year. So I'm in total agreement with Pat. The last thing this village board wants, I believe, is for us to get even close to non-investment grade, just because it eliminates a lot of flexibility with our capital structure. And that's what we've been working on. I think we have a lot of good things that have happened. Our fund balances are extraordinarily healthy. We've had a good year, and we're working on getting the numbers for 2013 to you guys, hopefully tomorrow, at least a preliminary look at those by each department. And I think that the water fund has performed well too. So I think we have a great story to tell. But as Pat said, it's with a negative bias, and I just think that we want to stem the tide, and we want to get you out in front of it. That's all.
So, and from a longer-term perspective, we just don't want to be where we're at. We want to move up to the level with the double A's. I think, in my view, but
Madam Mayor,
that's all we got.
Trustee Oliniechek.
I just am cautioning us as a board that, one of the things that in public works we have to concentrate on is, you had mentioned that there was talk of alleys. With the way this winter is hit, there's no way that we'll be able to do any alleys. The staff is already recommending that. Residents are going to be recommending that. We recommend that we put the money into the streets. And there are streets that didn't have any issues, but after the amount of cold that we've gone through, I'm really, really concerned with the conditions of our roads coming up in this next year, and how we're going to be able to fund the streets. And we will have to put off on the alleys, but that's going to be another expenditure that this winter so far is playing havoc in our streets.
But I also want to make point, though, Alex, we have not cut in the current budget, the budget that this board approved. We did not cut streets and infrastructure down to zero. There's a budget.
I understand we took money off of it. It was conservative, but we also did not predict that this winter was going to be as harsh as this winter is, and we need to be realists that through all the districts in all of the village of Oak Lawn, everybody is going through the same thing we're all experiencing. Is a very harsh winter with a lot of salt, a lot of freezing, a lot of thawing, a lot of freezing, a lot of thawing, which is going to play havoc on our streets.
Mayor?
Trustee Straight.
Brian, you had mentioned that we were going to try to achieve the 90% level of pension funding by the end of this decade. Did I hear that correctly?
Well, no, what I was asked was my recommendation. I think that the goal should be to push towards that 90%. Do I think we'll get there by the end of this decade? I think one of the things we've got to do, Bob, frankly, to prepare for you guys is a 3 to 5 year plan and try to show that. Plus, we've got to show kind of how we're going to continue to address sewers and infrastructure, because as I said, Mike said it, there's a trade-off between pensions and the infrastructure needs of the village.
When are we required by law to achieve the 90% funding level?
Well, we have to in 2016, which is the 2015 levy. So this year we did the 2013 levy, which is always 1 year behind the budget. Without boring everyone on the details, the levy for 2013, we're 2 levies behind when that law first goes into place. So 2016 budget year, 2015 levy. So 2 years from now, we have to put in 1/3 of that 90% calculation. 2017, it's 2/3, and 2018, it's the full amount.
Okay,
so,
but just for clarification, though, that is that 90% level. There's the 90% of the recommended funding level each year,
right,
which is what we have to achieve in 3 years. 90%. And I just want to make sure that the 90%. We're not going to be 90% funded. The pension will not be 90% funded.
No, that's correct.
Right.
No,
okay.
The way to think of it, let's just talk about this year's numbers, and I'm really trying to get through this without boring everyone with numbers, but $7.2 million is the total pension that the actuary recommended for this year's budget. That means if you take 90% of that, you get $6.3 million, and we've put in the current budget from the levy and in the budget $3.4 million. We talked about the other 1.2, and our goal is to try to push up towards that 6.5. I realize we can't do it all in 1 year, but in my opinion, we need to start getting to those kinds of levels on a regular year-after-year basis. No, we're not going to be at 90% funded because the 2 funds, as this board knows, is at 65%.
And you're not trying to achieve the 90% funding level for the entire pension fund
No.
by the end of the decade?
Just for that year. So, and that's the way the calculation will work. And frankly, again, to use those numbers, they will take that difference. Let's just say the number that we were going to put in is 4.6. The requirement was 90% of that 7.2, which is 6.3. So that difference is, I know I'm hitting everyone with it, but 1.7. They'll take 1.7 million off of our sales tax. And by the way, just so everyone's clear, IMRF has been doing this for years with property taxes. So I don't want this to make it seem like police and fire are doing, or that these two funds are doing something that's unheard of. IMRF has been funded, and Pat's shown in previous presentations what the funding levels of that particular fund, and it's not nearly as unfunded as our police and fire. And again, our police and fire are a lot better funded than most funds throughout the state, but I think we want to try to get out in front of it, and that's been the goal that, frankly, since I've started working with Pat in July.
Brian, you can't finish that statement without adding the fact that the benefit level for those two funds you're referring to is set by the
That's correct.
legislature, not by the mayor and not by the Board of Trustees, and the menu for those benefits far exceeds the menu in terms of retirement age, in terms of how that benefit is calculated, and that's why that is a fairly large number.
No, I think that's correct, Larry. I think what we plan to do, Pat and I have talked about this today. Again, these presentations, we're going to try to do them very quickly, but in February, we want to show what the benefit for a police officer, for a fireman, for a 150 employee, for a carpenter, for a typical, an average resident, and we'll show the benefit cost. But Larry's exactly right. A lot of these other funds don't have a 3% kicker, and they don't compound like police and fire.
Why don't
does.
we make a quick segue now to my presentation?
Can I just add one thing on this? In the 2013 pension results, one of the numbers that you put out there is total benefit payments and deductions, and you show 5.5 for fire, 5.4 million that was paid out, and you said that where's our treasurer? Pat, you said that the projected retirement for the fire department is how many?
40%, I think, fire, and Mike, is the police 20% or 18% or something like that? Okay.
So with that amount of, so that's on top of what we're already paying, we're going to see an increase of 40% just due to retirements too, or 20%?
The work's like that, but you'll see a big spike, but we'll show you in the future. It's a big spike. I don't know if the math works where it's at 40% spike. I guess it's pretty damn close.
But my concern is this: we're going to see an even bigger spike. So at the same time, we're required to put more money into it. We're going to have more people retiring at that same thing. So we're chasing money now. We're trying to get money put in there, and then we're going to have people that are due their benefit pulling money out. So not only do we have to chase what we're already behind, but we're going to have to put money in or be wary of the amount of money that's going to be taken out to a due benefit. So that to me is a bigger, and I would appreciate to see a 3 to 5 year plan on that.
Yep. And Brian's talked about that a couple different times in the past, whereas, they talk about if once you get under the 50% rate, it's really hard to sort of, keep traction on things because of you have so much money going out. But, yep, that's, I think, part of our 3 to 5 year exercise, which we'll be doing for you guys in a couple months.
Mayor, could I ask one more question about?
Certainly.
Okay. And Brian, you said that you gave us, your words were that I want to get ahead of this. And we keep talking about the concern about the TIF costs at 111th and Cicero. I'm wondering how much of the trying to get ahead of it is about the TIF at 111th and Cicero versus, let's say, other village spending.
Well, Larry will go into the TIF, but I
Go
think
back to the pie again, if you could, Joanne, of the distribution by percentage of that debt, Bob.
Yeah.
And if you could point to the 111th.
33%.
It's the red, it's the 30.
Well, the TIF is, the TIF is, yeah, the red, Larry, is There's two different TIF numbers up there. It says TIF to the right, but 111.
111 separate.
111 TIF, right. Joanne's right, it's the maroon, or red, or whatever.
Okay. Well, briefly, Bob, and I'll get into this. You heard our treasurer say, as far as more proactive discussion on the TIF. That's what we're going to be doing. And then you have on the agenda Trustee Carberry, has made what I think is an excellent suggestion about some of the work being done by this board in a workshop setting, which is open to the public. We just don't run the televisions. The public is here to listen. There's not dialogue back and forth. We still continue to have these regular meetings, but in a workshop, we take on what I call mega issues. And this is a mega issue that you need an hour talking with staff, with the developer, and going over big issues, whether it's water, whether it's the TIF. In the case of this TIF, I call it good debt. Now, Pat and I are like yin and yang. There is no such thing, he'll say, as good debt. I could argue with him that there's good debt. And what I mean by good debt is that you're creating a revenue stream because the village owns the ground. You have a developer who's sharing in the rent. When Mariano's goes up and other buildings, we get a percentage of the net revenue. And then you have an exit plan, which we've always publicly talked about, where we will be selling eventually our interest, as well as Hamilton, to an institutional investor who will be buying that based on rules of return, who the tenants are. And you'll be paying off a portion of your debt while the reconfigured TIF, which we're going to be talking about, generates through the incremental taxes the money to pay off that debt entirely. So the good news about that debt, there is a plan and there's a revenue stream without increasing taxes, just targeting the taxes to make that successful. And I'll kind of get into that.
Yeah, and all I was really saying, Bob, is with the two fund balances that we had, the general fund balance of at the end of the year was a little over $6 million, and the water fund was about $7 million. And because of the commitments at 111th for the final properties, we're going to come back to you with a refinancing of that piece of debt, okay, which is, just so everyone's clear, right now that's with Fifth Third, and we pay 1.3% on that piece of debt. So we would come back, refinance that a little bit for what we've had to pay, and beef up the fund balance, and then use that money to pay that debt down that we had talked about in the budget, which would replace that 1.2 million. All we're simply saying is right now, our fund balances, because we've had to use it for to be the bank, in effect, we're sort of like on this suspended animation point in the year. And that's what we've talked to Larry about, and he'll talk, he can talk to everything, all the exciting stuff that's going on out there. We're just trying to deal with the costs.
Before I lose our fine treasurer here, I just wanted to tell the board that the very, very thorough presentation you've seen that Pat, Joanne, Brian, staff, management team back and forth is a dynamic process that isn't static. That's why we're going to return, as the mayor said, in February, and that's why we're looking towards even maybe carving off more money on this budget. Because the presentation you gave, that was given to you, is brutally honest, and I mean brutally honest. And it's something that this board committed when you were elected and you talked as a group here through the summer months, to submit a budget, approve a budget, and not kick the can down the road. These are tough issues. We heard telecommunicators speaking here earlier. There's a lot more than what was said. Obviously, everybody feels there's no desire to have an employee of this fine organization lose a position. But it's been 11 months and a lot of issues discussed. And that was a decision that was rendered under the complete guidance and presence of an Illinois-appointed mediator from an Illinois State Labor Board and union officials agreeing to the proposed settlement, which the board will talk about in executive session and then come out in public session and make a decision to support or not support. I have recommended the settlement, and for, I believe, a lot of good reasons. Does that mean I'm happy? No, it doesn't mean I'm happy. But the fact of the matter is we're facing some very, very tough decisions, and we will not get through this without you as residents giving advice and counsel to your mayor and your elected board of trustees and our employees. And I'm going to repeat, our employees, from me right down to every part-time employee, has a role to play in our ability to right the ship, and it can be done. But what Pat and Brian are doing and presenting to you is continually upgrading you, not giving you anything that's sugar-coated, but giving you the facts, and that's what has to be done, and I salute what's being done. So that moves me, the yin and yang. I got to give you some good news here, too. Because there is good news. The list of communities that you saw that were presented, those list of communities, if you look at those communities there, I can assure you there isn't a community there, even AAA communities, that wouldn't get the AAA rating without looking at these issues. And their funding levels of pensions may not even be where we are, and I believe we're steps ahead of them. But it's a issue that you're all going to be watching Chicago in the next year. Crane's Business, very, very important article that just appeared on Monday. This is a defining year for Chicago and how they handle pensions, how they handle property taxes, how they handle their debt, and whether or not there'll be another 9.9% property tax increase, which actually was lowest in the 4 top cities in the United States. Big, big issues, and how Chicago goes and their involvement with our state representatives. The pension that was adjusted in a special session by our legislators did not address local pension issues, did not address what we need to address here at the local level, and we need their help as well, and Chicago's asking for their help to make corrections. I got that going correct, guys?
Yeah, you're going the right way, Larry. Keep going.
Okay. It was back on February 13th, about a year ago, not quite a year ago, that the former board was extremely pleased, Mayor Heileman and the board, to make an announcement that Mariano's was coming as an anchor tenant. That same board in 2006, it's a document on your website, it's been on the website for some time. That board in 2006, with some changes through the years and elected officials, Alex was part of it, Trustee Strite was part of it, Carol came on in '07, but all of them have had a role in working hard to make this become a reality. And in 2006, on page 1, this is what the city told the Chicago real estate market and developers. The 111th and Cicero plan offers Oak Lawn a chance to increase retail development and encourage the gateway, key word, operative word, you're going to hear about that a little later on with the TIF and some adjustments we're proposing, but to encourage the gateway concept at one of the village's major intersections. The document goes on to say that there'll be changes ahead. We're not sure quite about the future, but we're going to look to the creativity. We're going to look to a developer that's willing to join us in partnership. And that's really what occurred. We selected a developer, Hamilton Partners. We made the announcement, soon to come Mariano's. And you'll see the building in the background is going to be similar, though it'll look slightly different in Oak Lawn. It incorporates design and other facade improvements, which our local architectural board and our planning commission, through many public hearings, have already adopted. But that alone, that gives you an idea how many individuals, men and women, will be employed at this site. That's a 24/7 operation. It's not open 24 hours for the public, but when they're closed, they're doing all kinds of things to keep an operation this large serving the community. Look very much like this in the front. The inside of the building is extremely attractive. I know many of you, we've heard from you. Some of the trustees have been to Frankfurt. Carol and Bob have been to Vernon Hills. We've been out to Arlington Heights. Carol and I have looked at that. And Mr. Mariano has been here. He was here for the groundbreaking. And again, their concept fits in line with what the mayor and the board said they wanted at this center. A neighborhood shopping environment that incorporates amenities and focuses on the theme, shop well, eat healthy, and eat well. Okay. Estimated sales of Mariano's and the stores I'm going to kind of show you in concept in phase one, just phase one, we're estimating conservatively over 66 million in sales, and it will generate roughly 450 jobs to be located at that site. Phase one, 450 jobs, roughly 105,000 square feet of retail development of shops, eateries, clothing, apparel, other service industries for the community. The site plan, on the site plan, phase one, you'll see Mario's in the upper middle. Thank you. And you'll see at the corner, excuse my pointer here, you'll see a water feature on the corner with proposals for retail on either side, and currently a restaurant of which we've had CEOs from two well-established restaurants in the greater Chicago area, and we have spent since October working with a decision-making team for that company on what they need to know to make the final decision and sign a lease with our partner, Hamilton Partners. In order to do that, they want to know information about this community that's quite thorough. They want to know what your shopping habits are. They want to know that right now Oaklaunians spend $111 million eating at Palermo's, eating at Francesca's, eating at all the restaurants, Fox's, et cetera, in this community. And they also want to know there's room for growth to accommodate another upscale restaurant in the community. And we've had to demonstrate that. We have to tell information about household income, residential growth, taxation, cost of water, cost of sewer, cost of electricity, et cetera, et cetera. Very, very thorough process. So for those of you who wonder what's happening, you see you don't see progress. Even before the snow was flying, we've been working very closely and, quite frankly, working with Mr. Mariano to get his support and say that's a compatible restaurant that will fit very well. I'm pleased to say we have that support, so I'm pretty excited, and hopefully one of those two or some of the other restaurants that we're in literally weekly discussions with, along with Hamilton, will come to fruition, and hopefully one in the month of February towards the end. That's what our goal is, assuming it gets approved by the board. And I mean their board, not our board. Now, I'm going to show this briefly. This is a utility plan. It's not something we distribute publicly. You can't read the legend. But in order to put a Mariano's and locate it, all these lines represent active utilities, gas lines, major stormwater pipes, cutting across from Kilpatrick, going in an east to west direction, connecting with the Stony Creek water system that makes its way to the Calsay Canal. We have a large gas line that cuts through this area. Where you construct the buildings, what pipes you have to relocate. Servicing that master plan I showed you takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. That's all underway. Can't see this very well. This is a gentleman, construction worker in a ditch. What he is doing there is pouring the foundation walls late last November, before the bad weather set in, for the Mariano's. In order to build on this site, we had to construct underneath a lot of piers, because this area used to be a wetland many, many years back, dating back to 1976, when the Dominick's and the Kmart was constructed. And there was no regard given to the rest of the area, just a large empty parking lot, no landscaping put in place. That was 1976. So we had to make a lot of changes, but for those of you who wonder, or I know we've all had to deal with some of the questions, is anything happening or is someone not coming? There is a lot of work that's being done here under the ground, so that as soon as the weather breaks, you can see the remaining foundation work done, and all of a sudden you're going to see walls start to be coming up. A lot of the work's being precast at factories, precast walls that will go up. So there is a lot of work that's underway. I wanted to show you that. Now, what's going to happen? Again, 3 sources of money that are going to be created from this. New property taxes. Number 2 is a rent stream. We share in a net of the revenue that comes from all the rent of the new building. So it behooves the village and villagers, households, to buy and eat at the facility. So I'm anxious to see everybody patronize, as they do so well now, car dealerships in this community and other restaurants. That's one of the really outstanding things that I've noticed coming to Oak Lawn, is folks do patronize the businesses, and that's fantastic. So that kind of the end of our presentation. A portion of that debt is being addressed, and eventually someday sooner than later, this phase 1 and phase 2 will be eventually all opened up to the market, and the Village of Oak Lawn will get out of the real estate business and turn it over completely back to the private sector, which is where it belongs. Thank you.
Very good. So I'm going to try to shoot for the next meeting to be before the last board meeting in February, the workshop, okay, on that. So I'll send a memo out. But
thank you, Mayor.
thank you, Larry. Any questions regarding that presentation?
Madam Mayor, I think that went beyond the 3 minutes.
I agree.
Good job, Larry.
Item 9, new business by village trustees. District 1, Trustee Desmond.
Thank you. I'm going to be very quick. There's going to be another jobs fair for high school seniors, this time at Richards High School. That will take place on Thursday, March the 6th. I don't have an exact time yet, but I will let the people know. And if any parents out there, if they get high school seniors, please advise them to come to this fair. It was very beneficial, the last one we had at Oak Lawn High School. And just a last thing, I just want to give a shout out to a young guy on my block, AJ says every time it snows he's out shoveling the sidewalk on both sides of the street. So I'd like to thank him for helping his neighbours and showing some great community spirit. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. District 2, Trustee Oliniechek.
I'm going to forego my report.
Thank you. District 3, Trustee
I'll
Strick.
try to make mine brief. Thank you, Mayor. As many people know, we've recently had some criminal incidents that our community should be aware of in order to protect themselves and their families. Recently, we have had homes and businesses victimized by burglaries and home invasions. Unfortunately, these crimes have become all too prevalent in our community. It is important that we all remain aware of any suspicious activity in the area and that we report any activity to the police. Don't ignore suspicious activity. I'm happy to report that I will soon be sending an electronic newsletter to residents of the 3rd District to keep them informed of any criminal activity in the district. If you would like to receive the newsletter regarding activity in our neighborhood, please call my office at 422-3600 or send me an email at robertjstrite@aol.com and provide me with your email address. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. District 4, anything else you want to add?
No,
District 5, Carol.
Actually,
Trustee Quinlan.
just briefly, I have to say, I'm really bothered by the public comments of the former employees that we had. You know, we had received email from you, Larry, on the 21st saying, you know, Norcom took over and it was fully staffed by, you know, former employees. You know, silly me, I took that to think that pretty much all of our previous staff had been rehired. And so this really came as a shock to me because I felt that, you know, this board was led to believe that they would do whatever they could to hire as many of our 911 operators as possible, and to hear only 5 were...
Trustee, as a policy, I do not talk about personnel matters in public. I will tell you that this entire board in the last year has been fed significant information regarding the entire process. You've all been kept abreast. You've been kept abreast of critical data that are reviewed. And the staffing agreement is the responsibility fully of Norcom, okay? That's their responsibility. I'm extremely pleased that the individuals that were retained, and that was their decision, but those individuals are very outstanding individuals. We retain our director, who I think is second to none, and a training team, the supervisory team leaders, all were members of the union. They all progressed through the union. They were elevated to team leaders based upon their performance and experience. So when the switchover occurred, the switchover was entirely manned by extremely competent former employees of the Village of Oak Lawn and current employees of Oak Lawn. Now, having said that, prior, there was a training process, which I informed the board, that was being undertaken at our secondary backup dispatch center at Fire Station number 2. And that training was ongoing, and there would be calls that would be switched over and would be handled by staff and with the new trainees. Now, there was a lot of experience in the room on the switchover, and there continues to be a lot of excellent work.
I'm not taking away anything from the people that were hired. You know, my concern more really is the fact that, especially when you have people that live in Oak Lawn, that worked for us and didn't retain their job. And,
Well,
and
I'd
you
be
know,
more than happy to discuss that in executive session, because that's a personnel matter. And again, I have nothing, but I will always say positive comments about individuals who work for the village here in a public setting. And if there's something that needs to be stated from a constructive perspective or involve the board in that, I'm more than happy to discuss that in executive session.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that your whole report?
That is.
Okay, thanks. Moving on to District 6.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Trustee Carberry.
Just briefly, thank you to Brian and Pat and Joanne and Larry and all the staff and working on that, the budget presentation. It's a lot of work, I know, and there's a lot of work to be done. It's not easy as a department head, whether you're the chief of police or the fire or public works, or very difficult decisions to be made. But we got a lot of work to do, and it's obvious we're addressing it. And thank you guys for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 10. Item 10 is the village manager's report. Larry, I'm turning the floor over to you.
Thank you. I'll keep my comments brief, Mayor. I'm just handing out a background. As you know, part of the budget process and for the direction of the board, we distributed requests for proposals from the red light camera enforcement industry. Very pleased. I reported to the board that we had three outstanding firms that submitted proposals that were responsive to the RFP from the village. I informed the board that I was putting a committee together. This memo indicates the members of the committee. Liaison trustee Terry Vorderer agreed to serve on that committee. I thank Terry for that. The meeting was posted, so it was open to the public. There were some folks from the public. There was a small group in this room. And we listened to the two finalists. The two finalists were our current provider, Redflex Systems, out of Phoenix, Arizona. And then the second on the short list firm was the firm of SafeSpeed, and that firm is a Chicago-based firm. I might add it has at least one Oak Lawn resident who I met doing my tour in the technology department. I was very impressed with a young man living in Oak Lawn, working downtown, and in this technology. So you have the background and the process we followed. The criteria to consider my recommendation was overall presentation, technology, service maintenance, financial model, customer service, data in support of public safety, relationship with the Illinois Department of Transportation, extremely important in this case, and references. And I provided the board with references during the fall months that were outstanding as they applied to one of the firms and the firm that I am recommending to you. So I'm recommending that the board select and approve the firm of SafeSpeed from Chicago, Illinois, and that the village manager and the village attorney be authorized to immediately negotiate in terms of putting the agreement as to form, which then would be brought back to you for approval.
Thank you. So I'd like a motion, please, to direct the manager and council to prepare a contract with the vendor to provide services as submitted.
So made.
Properly moved by trustee Vorderer.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Desmond. Any discussion on this item? Trustee Straight, you have the
Yes,
floor.
thank you. I know that the manager stated very clearly that that contract will be brought back before this board. I just want to make sure of that. So.
That is correct, Larry.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Okay, please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan.
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek.
Yes.
Trustee Desmond.
Yes.
Trustee Carberry.
Yes.
Trustee Vorderer.
Yes.
Trustee Strike.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So we're going to move on to 10B. This is still under the village manager's report. This is per village board 2014 budget adoption motion to approve personal services agreement with Steve Radis, resignation agreement for Steve Radis, an agreement with Bring It, Inc. Larry?
Thank you, Mayor, and again, thank you for the action on item A. I really don't have any further comments. I'm more than happy to answer any questions board members may have. This agreement that has been prepared after thorough discussion with the village attorney's office and with the amount of tension and scrutiny that the reorganization has had, which is fair. I believe that this still is consistent with my presentation made in August during the budget workshops in November and the board's action in December. I would recommend approval.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item?
Has there been a motion?
Oops, nope, we need a motion, you're correct. Are you making that motion? Okay. We need a
Motion to
motion.
approve.
Properly moved by trustee Carberry, seconded by trustee Oliniechek. Any discussion on this item?
Yes, Mayor.
Oh, trustee Straight.
Thank you. The presentation of this contract to award another political supporter is an attempt to erase a serious violation of the law. We are backdating a contract in order to pretend that what was done here was legal, when in fact it was not legal. For some reason, we have, as you've heard, we have 3 agreements before us, which, to say the least, is unusual to have 3 agreements made in one motion. One agreement is for a personal services agreement with Mr. Radis to provide property inspection services and economic development consulting. The village will be paying Mr. Radis $75,000 a year. Now, I like Steve Radis, but Steve is not qualified to provide consulting in the area of economic development. He doesn't have a degree in this area, or any area for that matter, and he has zero experience. He doesn't, this is another case of the board following the fail and hit list that said you should reward supporters. We then have a resignation agreement where we are pretending that Steve resigned in September, even though he was working in the property inspection division up until just last week. We can't legally, morally, or ethically rewrite the facts just because the manager was caught paying an employee in violation of the law. Finally, the third agreement is the one in which Bring It, Inc., Mr. Radis's company, is going to pay the village back for the payments that it has received. Of course, they're going to pay it back with village money because we are going to personally pay Mr. Radis retroactively back to September. The village's own conflict of interest ordinance, which states that the whole arrangement is voidable because it was entered into in violation of the law. This whole scheme is part of a massive cover-up, and I can't support it.
Madam Mayor.
Trustee Carberry.
Paul, is everything that we're doing right now, right?
That's correct. That's our opinion. And Mr. Duffy's here from my partner to talk about it. We've crafted this agreement. We think it's consistent and compliant with the law.
But here, forget about the lawyers and all that. I'm just going to make a comment on this. And, you know, surely we didn't enter into this, Bob, I mean, to jam ourselves up and make us look stupid politically, which it made, you know. It may make us look a little foolish, right? But I don't think I didn't benefit from it. I don't know Steve Radis. I've never known him politically or any other way. But what I do know, since taking this position, I've probably had at least 20 different times from residents, as you know, you deal with the same request, where Steve's been following up and doing a good job with the residents and the property management. Now you talk about economic development. You know, that's a broad term, right? But right now, we have a guy who's from Oak Lawn, has vested interest here. We don't have to, he doesn't have to be he's not getting benefits or insurance, which, to be quite frank, I don't know why, if we're going to make a commitment. But he's met with several brokers that I know, retail brokers. Every one of them has given him high praise, and he's been following up on that development, which is paramount right now. You know the amount of dollars we have down there at 111th Street. Someone has to manage that. And I think a guy from Oak Lawn who's been involved, he's been on the capital, the capital planning and development boards, and which is a sacrifice and a commitment. He obviously loves Oak Lawn. So I was back and forth on this, and to be frank, because I'm not happy with how it was handled, and I'm not happy about, I'll talk about that later. When I find out about, the things, and I don't think it's being hidden from me, or there was anything done illegally or purposefully, but we need to communicate better as a board, and everybody needs to know what's going on and when. But I don't think anything was done in this hit list. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what you're promoting on that. I don't get it. I really don't. We got a lot of things that we have to get done here in the village, and you know that. Everybody knows that. And there's no hit list business. I don't have anything to do with Radis, and other than thinking he could do a good job for us. And we need someone now. And if he doesn't, the village manager's got to do his job. The village manager's right now saying he could do the job. And we need somebody there to, we have a need there, a specific need. And he's probably doing that full-time if it was me, but that's all I have to say on it. So I am going to support it, and I am going to, and just make sure, and the lawyers, if there's something that you guys want to shed light on it to answer any Bob's questions about anything illegal being done here. I'm surely there, I know there was no intent of that, but if there's a mishap or there's risk here, we have to mitigate risk. Let's get it out right now.
Would you care to come up to the podium, sir?
Sure, absolutely. Can I? Awesome.
Sure. Let me have him introduce himself, and I think, Mike, you were still talking. You were asking him questions, correct?
No, I'm not. You know,
okay.
it's declarative in nature. I just want you to, you heard what was said by
I did.
Would you introduce yourself, please,
sure.
sir?
Daniel P. Duffy from Peterson, Johnson, and Murray.
So what I want to know is, does the village have risk? And was there any intent to do anything illegal?
Not in my judgment. And, this contention that something unlawful was done in the past is stretches things beyond the imagination. As far as my legal analysis goes, this law that's being cited as having been transgressed doesn't have anything to do with circumstances like existed here. It's meant to govern someone's self-dealing within municipal government. That's not the case in this circumstance at all. The way that the agreements have been designed is to button everything up and make everything go forward legally to make to give the village the lowest risk possible. There's a Supreme Court case called Bogan versus Scott Harris that approves a legislative action with regard to budgetary matters with regard to staffing. And this is designed to bring it within the confines of Bogan versus Scott Harris and give us the greatest amount of protection going forward as the village to protect against any litigation that's brought by someone who would want to litigate this.
Thank you. Bob, you have any questions for the?
I would.
Carol actually had a question first, and
I'm sorry, Mayor,
and I'm gonna just let Carol take the floor.
Honestly, I'm just frustrated with it. I think you guys blew it, and I think that you made this board look terrible. I think poor Steve. I think he was blindsided because you didn't look ahead of, okay, this is coming down the pipeline. This is what we're doing. Are we doing what's best for Steve? And most importantly, are we doing what's best for the village? And I think that's your job as our village attorneys. We don't have to ask you those questions. You know what's on the agenda. You know what's in our budget. And it is your job to look at that and make sure that we are protected. I mean, that's just how
Mike,
I feel,
actually.
because nobody else would, this would not have happened. And Steve's in the middle of the whole thing as well.
Trustee Carberry.
Larry said, I don't know if the lawyers were, I'm not looking to point fingers at why we had to screw up, we fumbled, but it's not their fault, right?
No, I don't believe it's a question of placing blame. Again, I'm going to be very open as your manager. There was public discourse, and I can go back very clear in your tills. I led the board from the reorganization in August. Then the ethics conflict of interest was passed in September after the decision was, let's use the talents of an existing part-time employee. I advertised internally through our HR department, and we posted, and 4 Oak Lawn employees responded. 4 wonderful people. I interviewed all 4, and I selected and told the board who I felt was best equipped internally on a part-time basis and to do it.
All right, Matt. But what I'm saying is, Carol seems to think that and I don't know.
The attorney, that's my question. The
And I
attorney
don't
should
know.
have looked at it at that
And I don't know if they
point.
knew. I don't think the
Right.
attorneys knew
Okay.
that there was a, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry if it's more of a discussion here, but.
That's okay.
But I think Carol's bringing up a good point, but what I'm saying is, Carol, I don't know, and this is all I want, I don't think they knew that he was working as a part-time employee and a contractor, and I don't think, obviously we wouldn't have done it if, we thought there was something wrong with it, but I don't think the law firm knew. Is that accurate?
That's correct. We don't, I don't know all the employees up here. When we discovered it is when we were asked to draft the contract.
Yeah, and again, trustees and trustee Quinlan, if you want to blame anybody, blame me.
Yeah, and I'm not
Don't
looking to
blame
do
the
that.
We
attorneys.
did talk about it at the board table. We absolutely, it was brought up at this board table, where I don't know if it was you sitting here or I don't know which one attorney was sitting here, but it was most
Yeah.
certainly.
I'd like to respond to what Bob said. I think it's important because I understand where Bob was coming. Job sharing, the concept of job sharing, I was doing that as a manager in the 1980s. Doing that, again, in a recession of 1983, when that organization I represented was downsizing, privatizing, staffing, and addressing a terrible, terrible recession and 20% interest rates. And we were taking existing part-time employees and figuring out a way we could have them do tasks that would either
Was that in the 30s, Larry?
and in the case of Steve, as you all know, he did an outstanding job as a volunteer, as planning commission member and as a chairman, and which really has a lot of interface with developers and site plans, so he's very familiar. And then he has property maintenance inspection work. I thought, quite frankly, as a manager, I saw some talents that he had. And by the way, of the other applicants, there was another one who had inspection work, delightful young lady, with a lot of great experience, and hopefully in the future we can develop something further for her in the organization. Very impressive. We had a full-time employee, and he wasn't prepared to give up his full-time employment, but also loves this community. They were all interested in furthering Oak Lawn. So that's the history. I raise my hand. If there is any confusion or the difficulty, it is a little bit creative. Not every municipality does it, but we were in a budget structural deficit presentation by our treasurer going into August, and we were looking to make changes in many areas, and we still have more work to go. But that's really all. There's nothing, I'd say, secretive or that was ever covert. It was very overt in public meetings to try to make this happen.
Madam Mayor?
Trustee Olenichek.
Yeah, I just want to comment to we always hear this hit list, and so I do have a copy of the hit list, and you can pick and choose what you want out of it, but it's very compelling that when you get a letter that starts out that this is just, it's disinformation opinions, mine, that I want to share with you based on my collective 8 years of experience serving as a trustee, in which Trustee Phelan did a great job as a trustee. He puts, again, these are my opinions and suggestions, only that I'm providing in the hope that it might help you formulate your own opinions. Help you formulate your own opinions. But every time there's a move that's made that's counter to what a certain person here wants, it turns into a political statement. One of the things that is very foreboding is in the last sentence it goes, and always remember, you're only 2 degrees or less removed from people whose sole purpose is to undermine you in your efforts to deliver what the Oak Lawn residents said overwhelmingly that they want. Be very, very cautious. Those are good words of advice. But going into the alleged hit list, which is just advice, it says, the village manager, we need stability there. Any and all problems, mistakes, screw-ups will be the fault of the Oak Lawn first team going into 2015 elections because we're elected by the vast majority of the residents in the village of Oak Lawn. Larry Deachin has done an incredible job under extremely distressful and screwed-up circumstances. It'll be exciting to see how effective he can be with a mayor and board that supports him instead of undermines him. What a very true statement. But going into how we in Oak Lawn are a very small community. We all know each other. We see each other out. We see each other out in the streets, at the grocery store, shopping, events, at restaurants. But being that Oak Lawn is a small community, and when people want to put politics in everything they do, I just look at, you are the owner of Illinois Energy Aggregation, correct?
I am.
Did you use Mr. Radis as a consultant? Yes or no?
First of all, I
It's yes or no.
You know, Alex,
I recommended Steve Radis for the Planning and Development Board position. I'm glad you're finally acknowledging that the hit list is a document that you're very familiar with.
It's a recommendation. It's not a
You
hit list
followed
this year.
every single,
Trustee
down to the
Straight,
point.
let
you
Alex
followed
finish
it.
Well,
his
now
thought,
he's
then
going to
I'll
say
give
that
you
we
the floor.
followed it down to every single point, which is absolutely false and not true. Anybody that wants to see it, take a look at the recommendations that were made. They were recommendations. My only point to you, Mr. Straight, is everything is about politics to you. You have gone so low and so far as to put your own blog, which you're so ashamed of that you don't even put your name on it. That you don't even put your name on any of the articles that are written on it. And you are an advertiser on it, you and your fellow business partner, a lawyer, Dennis Brennan. I'm just very concerned with what you're trying to do for the village of Oak Lawn.
Please call the vote, Jane.
How
Trustee
about,
Quinlan?
But you know what? I was asked if I have any
Please call the
questions for
vote.
the attorney. Well,
Trustee
I think
Quinlan?
I do have some pretty important questions. I think that I would like the answer.
We're acknowledged.
There's the questions, let 'em ask the
To
question.
ask the attorney a question.
Do I have a second?
Second to call the vote.
I'll second the vote.
Okay. Please take the roll.
Trustee Quinlan?
Abstain.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
No.
Motion passes 4-1-0.
Thank you, Mayor Board. Item C is appointment of Kevin Cunningham as village prosecutor. You have his resignation from the village for the functions of adjudicator and counsel to the Police and Fire Commission. Once again, I accept responsibility. I made that recommendation to consolidate for a fixed fee of $60,000 back in July, early August. The board accepted that recommendation. And for reasons that are explained in his resignation, he has decided that he can only continue in the capacity as village prosecutor. I don't appoint or make a decision on the adjudicator. That's the village president. In order to consolidate the functions last July and August, I asked for the support of the mayor and the board, and thank you for giving that support. With this change, I did approach the recommendation that the mayor had, and I asked Mr. Cunningham and the gentleman being appointed for the position as adjudicator and special counsel if they would cap the fees, no change, $60,000 fixed fee. And Mr. Olson of Olson Stirk graciously said, I will bill the village at $185 an hour, but I will cap the fee, and my split will be less than Kevin, and it comes to a maximum of 5. So if there is a month where adjudication is not that busy, we'll only be billed at $185 an hour, and the invoice he will submit will be less than his monthly stipend. Total stipend will still remain not to exceed $5,000 per month, $60,000 a year. That's a savings from $72,000, same numbers we discussed when Trustee Vorder asked for that information back in July and August. No change in the budget number. Thank you.
Okay. May I have a motion, please, on item 10C? This is the appointment of Kevin Cunningham as village prosecutor.
Motion approved.
Properly moved by Trustee Oliniechek, seconded by Trustee Vorder. Any discussion on this item?
Yes, Mayor.
Trustee Desmond.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify this again. When this came up before the board, the previous time, was it wrong then? And is it right now?
Outstanding question. I'm going to give you an answer as a manager, not a lawyer, and I'll yield to the attorney. I'm totally befuddled by this. My job is to manage a village, and I have had situations in the past throughout the United States where these functions have all been handled and consolidated by an attorney. I see absolutely no conflict in what was recommended to you, but I'm not an attorney. So apparently there was a guideline, not a law, again, a guideline prepared internally by the Bar Association of the state of Illinois and by a committee that looks at ethics and looks at guidelines. And an opinion had been issued of which I certainly would not been aware of as a manager, because I don't belong to the Illinois Bar Association. I belong to the International City Management Association. And I called the attorney for the city of Elmhurst. Very fine firm. Like we use an outside firm, Elmhurst uses a firm based in Rosemont. And I spoke to the attorney at hand. They were protesting the guideline. I read a copy, or I was forwarded a copy of their protest, which I thought was outstanding and right to the mark. So it's a guideline. It's not a law. But there was so much intense pressure, and I don't want to use the word political, whatever, but Mr. Cunningham is a gentleman with family, young children, and a career. He's an attorney who I think has been a very effective attorney. That's what the police, and that's what Jeannie Galzin, who runs our property maintenance, tells us, that he was doing an outstanding job serving us as adjudicator, counsel to Police and Fire Commission, and prosecutor for less than what we were doing it before. Sound like a pretty good deal to me. Everyone he interfaces with likes it. He's doing a good job. But you read his resignation. He said, Larry, he said, I cannot jeopardize my career, although it's a guideline and I disagree with my own professional association. I feel incumbent to resign at this time, and I respect him for that. I fought it for the longest time, asking him to work with his bar association, talk some sense into the bar association. But again, I'm a manager. I don't want to be disrespectful of the legal profession. I have the utmost respect for the legal profession. But you know what? I can disagree. I disagree with arbitrators who are lawyers. I disagree with judges at times, but we respect their opinion, and then you act accordingly. But that's the fact.
Right,
Thank
and
you.
I would just add that there was nothing, the conflict, there was nothing done wrong at the board. The conflict was all Mr. Cunningham's. We issued an opinion, and Mr. Duffy's here to talk about that we circulated to the board. Certainly, the only reason that we're here tonight is because Mr. Cunningham decided to resign, not anything that we did.
And I might add that other communities for years, for decades, have been handling these functions through one law firm or one attorney. To me, conflicts occur on individual cases, and I can think of a conflict, and it's incumbent upon that specific attorney, based on his code of ethics and his body of knowledge, to declare a conflict when that occurs. Now, that's a manager speaking. Sorry, Mr. Duffy.
I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Mr. Duffy.
Absolutely, and I think, again, Daniel P. Duffy for the record. It's important to distinguish between the Illinois State Bar Association, which is it's a bar association, a voluntary group, and the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission, which is the Supreme Court's commission that sets the actual rules of professional conduct that govern attorney conduct. The ISBA's advisory opinion is not binding in any way, shape, or form. It's an opinion by a committee of the State Bar Association, and quite frankly, it's flat out wrong. They've misanalyzed the rules that apply to the situation. They've overlooked the actual rules that apply to the situation. Prosecutors are governed by a specific rule, 3.8. Judges and arbitrators and adjudicators are governed by a different section of the code. It's Rule 63C. Under the analysis that should have been done, under the analysis that the ISBA did, every time a federal judge heard a case involving the United States government would be the same conflict and I use that term in quotes, it would be the same conflict for that federal judge that they've pointed out that as to the adjudicator in this case. It's not a conflict. And I say that as someone who served on the ARDC Review Board for 9 years. There has never been a case in Illinois history finding this to be a conflict. The cases cited in the opinion were from the 1954 was one case, and 1951 was another case, and no courts have read them the same way this ISBA committee read them. All that said, Mr. Cunningham has to do what is best for him. The village, from the village's perspective, There was absolutely no problem with his continuing. The suggestion would be that he simply read into the record that he does in fact serve as both adjudicator and prosecutor in the situation where anybody was coming up for adjudication. And that, in my opinion, would have solved, would have resolved any risk on the village's part. Mr. Cunningham has, in an overabundance of caution, chosen to step down, which leads us here today.
Thank you.
Mayor. Just one follow-up question.
Yes, follow up, Trustee Desmond, and then we'll turn the floor over to
What
trustees.
other towns has this type of arrangement that we had?
My understanding is it's very commonplace. There's some 7,000 municipalities in the state of Illinois, and my understanding is that south of I-80, it is almost always the circumstance where the village prosecutor has more than one role. North of I-80, it's still common, but it's not 100%. But in answer to your question, it is common.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Straight.
Thank you, Mayor. When Kevin Cunningham was appointed as prosecutor and as adjudicator, the Illinois State Bar Association said that such an appointment was in violation of the state's ethics rules. And this board did ignore that opinion. And obviously you wrote the opinion. I know that the village attorney wrote an opinion saying that the Bar Association was wrong. I think it's obvious that the Bar Association is correct and that the village is wrong. I believe now that the manager indicated that Kevin had been in contact with the licensing agency for 5 or 6 weeks. Is that not correct?
Mayor and board, the first knowledge that I had of this was not this organization contacting the village. We had no prior knowledge, and I had no knowledge at the time it appeared in a publication. As soon as that publication was made available to me, I started raising questions, and at that time, I made contact with the village prosecutor / adjudicator for the city of Elmhurst, highly respected law firm, and I asked them if they had any knowledge of it, and that's what they basically, what Mr. Duffy told you is what they told me. That was their opinion as well. Having said that, I encouraged Mr. Cunningham to work with his professional association / committee, as I certainly would with my professional association, and try to explain. He already has a binding agreement with the village, approved, and things are working out well. Unfortunately, there are other circumstances, emails, blogs, communications that Mr. Cunningham felt in the interest of his family and his profession that he best thought for him that he should step down and just do the prosecution. I honored that. I got the resignation letter. I gave it to you within 48 hours, and I placed it on the agenda. And that's the history behind it, Trustee.
Well,
Yeah, would you care to respond first to the
I would.
trustees'
It's
comments?
important to note that the ISBA has no enforcement authority over these advisory opinions at all, and they are one of some 40 bar associations in the state of Illinois. The CBA used to issue advisory opinions on ethics. Some of the bar associations have ethics hotlines. Nothing they say has the force of law in any way, shape, or form. These are ethics advisory opinions of a committee with the ISBA. They can be wrong, and this one is flat out wrong. It does not have the force of law. It could not be enforced against Mr. Cunningham or any other attorney in the state of Illinois in this situation. And Mr. Cunningham, because of the pressures and an overabundance of caution, chose to act as cautiously as possible. But there was nothing that the village did wrong here. There would be nothing wrong with the village going forward with this arrangement.
Trustee Straight, continue.
Mr. Duffy, would you say that it's typical then that you would ignore an Illinois State Bar Association ethical opinion?
You know, the State Bar Association used to issue a lot more ethical opinions than they do now. Why this one came out when it did is a bit of a mystery. But you can see it came out in late 2013, and it was the 7th opinion. It's the 13-07. Only 7 opinions all year long. It's a committee set up to pontificate about different things. The ABA has never come down with anything remotely close to this. The Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, in the 2012 term, commented about the history of government prosecutors also having private law practices, including the likes of Abraham Lincoln and the first 4 attorney generals of the United States. So there is nothing, and there was no comment in the Supreme Court's opinion about the nature of this being a conflict whatsoever. It isn't a conflict. The opinion itself is poorly written and should be disregarded, quite frankly.
Well, I guess then what I would just add is, you've known this for months for sure, and you work for the firm that represents the village, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Rather than just ignoring what's an ethical opinion, did you, I guess 2 things. Did you ever work to try to change that opinion of theirs? And did you have any contact with the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission about what they would do in the event that somebody was brought up on charges?
Well, I think you misunderstand the process, because no one could be brought up on charges based on an ISBA opinion. The rules of professional conduct govern attorneys. The ARDC is the enforcement arm for the rules of professional conduct. No one has ever enforced an ISBA guideline.
All right, what if somebody
it's
filed
impossible.
a complaint?
It's impossible.
If somebody filed a complaint, would they not hear it then? They'd say they would disregard. Are you saying that they would disregard it?
The way the ARDC works is people file complaints all the time. Every day they file complaints against attorneys. They make, most are spurious. 99% are spurious. It goes to a prosecutor in the office, and the prosecutor decides whether to bring it to a board, and the board makes a decision whether to charge it or not. 99% of the complaints that are brought by citizens, non-lawyers typically, litigants, are never charged. They never get to the charging basis. If this were brought to an ARDC prosecutor, in my opinion, there is no way it would result in charges of any kind.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I just want to bring up again the comments that have been made by a trustee here is trying to undermine moving this village forward, and quite honestly is causing this village to have spent taxpayer money going after issues that the trustee thinks are relevant, which aren't relevant, but forcing people into situations where they have to make decisions to provide for their family versus, stay the fight and keep going on with it. And I think it's just another pitiful example of somebody undermining our ability to govern.
Any other discussion on this item?
I just would like to say that I think we should follow ethical guidelines when they come from the Illinois State Bar Association, and instead of thinking that we know better and can do whatever we want, because that certainly is the impression that, I think that we get.
The impression you want to get.
The Illinois State Bar Association guidelines have no force of law, and even if they did have the force of law, they only apply to attorneys. The village is obviously not an attorney. The village has no stake in this game whatsoever.
So only
Trustee
Kevin
Carberry.
could be affected by their actions.
Madam Mayor, I would like to add on to that.
Okay, Trustee Olenichek, then.
The implied liability, based off of Trustee Strite's own comments, is that if we kept this going, then the people who were in adjudication and also being heard at the other hearings could have legal recourse against the village, us, the taxpayers. That's what a sitting trustee is doing with our taxpayer money. That's the point, because he feels, based off of his own interpretation of the law, or maybe another.
My interpretation, it's the Illinois State Bar Association.
Trustee Carberry, you had a comment?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much for all your information, but I just want to comment on Kevin Cunningham, who I have known Kevin a long time, and his integrity and his reputation is excellent, and he's a wonderful guy. I wish I'm sorry he did have to resign, you know. I am, and the only thing I'm going to say to the people, if anyone is wasting their time and watching this, that you know, we got a lot of people in Oak Lawn. Our main focus should be their housing values and what we're doing for them financially, and we get down these rat holes of junk, and it gets a little you get a little frustrated, and it gets you to where you either got to work harder, right? You either work harder or you give up. And I don't think anyone's going to, there's no one here who's going to give up. I'm not giving up. And people care, and these people that work here care in Oak Lawn. There's no doubt in my mind. There's people from everybody on this, you guys saw what in this budget presentation, that's what we got to stay focused on. This 111th Street, Christ Hospital, you know, relationship, those are the things we have to nurture. And we got a lot going on. But if we stay the course on this junk, ain't nothing gonna get done. So we gotta work together in this hit list business. Come on, it's you've been going with that. It's an old record, Bob. It don't fly. It doesn't. I know these people now over a short period of time. I've gotten to know Terry Vorder, Carol here. I don't think any Olenichek and Desmond. There's no one following anybody here. Now, if someone with 8 years' experience, I don't care if it's a state representative or a senator or an ex-trustee of Oak Lawn, if they're going to help us, if someone has a piece of advice, by all means, if it's going to help Oak Lawn, even you, I'll take it. But it's got to be something about making Oak Lawn better. Because if it's about putting us back, Bob, you just aren't. It's not working, and it's not going to sell. Because people know right now. Let me finish. Just let me finish. Just let me finish. And you can go on and you can try to sell the hit list and all the other stuff, and you can try to convince my people that I'm a follower. That ain't going to work. The people that know me know I don't follow. So, but I listen. I listen when things make sense. And even if you come up with something that makes sense, I'll listen. But you're not making sense.
Well, you know what?
So we're going to call the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Olenichek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Streit?
No.
Motion passes 5-1.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. I have no other items.
Okay, well, we're almost through the first page of this agenda. We're moving on to item 11. This is ordinance 140207. This is an ordinance amending certain provisions of Title 6 and 7 of the Village Code. These are building-related codes. May I have a motion, please, on item 11?
I would actually motion to postpone this.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone and properly moved by Trustee Desmond, seconded by Trustee Vorder. Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Olenichek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Streit?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 12 on page 2, ordinance 140208. This is an ordinance authorizing the establishment of tax increment financing, interested parties, registries, and adopting registration rules for such registries. May I have a motion, please, on item 12?
Move to...
Mayor, if I could, just as an introduction on these items, the next three that you have are basically setting in motion what Trustee Streit was asking about for the Stony Creek Promenade and that Cicero and 111th TIF. And it all begins Monday night when we give a public PowerPoint presentation in a public meeting here in this room with our Planning and Zoning Board. And then hopefully following the guidelines and suggestions of Trustee Carberry, where we can meet as a group and spend a good workshop on the whole issue of the TIF and what we're trying to do at that corner. The first item, registry, the law sets up anyone in this room, anyone watching on television, any citizens, you want to get notices as to all the meetings and documents that are being printed, just come and sign up, okay, and we'll provide those to you on the clerk's office. Number 2 is to set the date, which is in March for the hearing, so we have plenty of time to have a workshop. And then the third one, again, just indicates it's called an inducement letter, that we're informing Cook County we're doing this to induce developers, to induce private investment at that location, and that's a perfunctory requirement of the TIF statute. And again, for everybody knows, TIFs are in 48 of 50 states. They started in Minnesota, started here in the Midwest, very successful in Michigan, Illinois, and Minnesota, but I've run into it in most states I've worked in. It's a tool, just one of many tools to try to encourage redevelopment in the community. Thank you.
Okay, and Trustee Desmond, I believe you were making a motion, I think, or asking a question?
No, that was
no,
before.
you weren't. Okay, so I need a motion, please, on item 12, please.
Motion to approve.
Properly moved by Trustee Oliniechek.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Desmond. Any discussion on item 12? Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Yes.
Thank you.
Passes.
Okay, item 13, ordinance 140209. This is an ordinance of the Village of Oak Lawn, Cook County, Illinois, to set a date for and to approve a public notice of public hearing for the Cicero Gateway redevelopment project. May I have a motion on 13?
Motion to approve.
Properly moved by Trustee Vorder,
Second.
seconded by Trustee Oliniechek. Any discussion on item 13? Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Yes.
Okay.
We're moving on to item 14, Resolution 140205. This is a resolution of the Village of Oak Lawn, Cook County, Illinois, setting forth and expressing an official intent regarding certain expenditures to pay redevelopment project costs in connection with the redevelopment of the proposed Cicero Gateway project area to be reimbursed from the Cicero Gateway Special Tax Allocation Fund. Need a motion on 14, please.
Motion to approve.
Properly moved by Trustee Vorderer,
Second.
seconded by Trustee Desmond. Any discussion on this item? Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder? Trustee Straight?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, item 15 on our agenda tonight is a discussion on Committee of the Whole. I'm going to turn the floor over to Trustee Cardberry on this to lead it off.
You know, and if we want to postpone it, we can. I don't want to, the meeting going the way it
So
is,
moved.
Second.
No, I think this is important. I think, Mike, we need to hear what you have to say.
It's going to be a discussion. We want to go
Well,
through it
let's at
tonight,
least
so
start
we'll
the
want-
discussion maybe and at least tell people what it's about and then we could revisit next time.
It's an effort to get all of us together to, with staff and as a workshop, like Larry described it. And so we all clearly vet and know what's going on in the next agenda. So there's nothing coming up that's going to be that anyone's going to be surprised with, and it's just another way for all of us to communicate and to share information and ideas with staff and us.
So
that's
we'd-
pretty much what it is.
it'd be an extra informal meeting.
In the way it's been described to me, it does seem like like everyone might be thinking it's more work, but we already do a lot of other work, one-on-one with. Someone in the public works, or you're getting involved anyway. And then if we do it all together, we all get the information, get everyone together, and eventually it becomes efficient, and you actually, I think you're going to save time and hopefully make better decisions
Excellent.
with more communication. So that's all I got.
Okay, Trustee Border?
Yeah, Trustee Carberry, excellent idea. Communication is the key to solving a lot of our problems. If we share our thoughts and ideas in a meeting format, I think that would be great. I look forward to more discussion on the concept.
Okay.
I did
Trustee
talk.
Linichuk.
I did talk to Trustee Carberry. There are a couple of things that when we go to like PD&C or the Public Works, going over the big plan for the Public Works, we'll have to talk about some rules of engagement and what we want to do, because there are things that we do in the different committees, whether it's the IT committee, which is key in getting the draft on the whole internet and website rebuilt and up to date. That if other trustees want to go through that, that's perfectly fine. But I will tell you that average Public Works meeting is about an hour to an hour and a half, and that's just one meeting that you're going through. So I do agree with meeting prior to a meeting to go over and handle a true executive session the way it is. And hopefully we get rid of some of these hidden agendas and work towards the common good of the people. I think that that's a great thing to do. But we still have a lot of other work in the committees that are out there that we really don't soft sell the different committees that we're involved with and the amount of time that we have to go with it. I think a recap from the different committeemen in that type of a meeting, I think would be an excellent way of doing it. And I agree that, working with this new board has been excellent because of the open and honest communication and not having hidden agendas. So I commend you for bringing this forward. You had said that you wanted to meet prior to a meeting, so are you talking like a half hour before a meeting?
You know what, I talked with our attorney, Pat Connolly, about this, and he's familiar with other municipalities that do it, and I'm going to talk to another municipality that does it. Some people have a little different flavor, so I'll try to get something in writing that we all can review and look at, and then if I'll send it out to everybody, and whatever feedback we get, we'll juggle it around and see if we can come up with something.
Great.
That works for everybody.
We'll help you draft a memo on it and get it over to you.
All right, thanks.
That'd be great. Trustee Desmond, were you going to say something?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great idea, Mike. We're here at 10 o'clock, discussing and talking back and forth about these items on the agenda. Maybe if we had an agenda meeting before the regular meeting, open to the public, if we have questions, we can ask various different departments. Chicago Ridge, I believe, have an agenda meeting before their regular meeting. Their regular meetings, they go through the agenda. It's a straight vote. If there's any disagreements, if they want something tabled, they discuss it at the agenda meeting. I think it might cut back on a lot of the political posturing, especially coming up to elections. So I would be for your suggestion, Mike.
So the way I'm going to proceed is I'd like a motion to postpone this till the next meeting, and at that time we'll have a more formal kind of document. Properly moved by Trustee Olenichuk.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Carberry.
Just one comment, Mayor. I'm certainly familiar with how many other villages conduct their meetings, and oftentimes the committee meeting, the committee of the whole, first of all, those meetings are often, they're not televised. And those are, they can be the working meeting of the village, and then the regular board meeting, which in our case is televised, are often, very quick meetings where there's no discussion. So as long as this is not an attempt to really keep from the public what's going on here, I'm certainly open to discussing.
All of these meetings would be open to the public.
And televised as well?
It would not be televised.
Would not
It
be
would be a
televised. Now,
workshop.
I think that would concern me, because it does then, certainly would give me the impression that we may not want the public to know what we're talking about.
Well, it would be open to the public.
Open
so-
and public is, open and televised are two different things.
We'll vote on this.
Madam Mayor, let me just give an example of what we did on the budget. We had meetings with the budget. This board worked very, very hard on a very difficult budget. It was an open meeting, but it wasn't televised. And then we came into the regular board meeting, and we reported the results of our work. I think that as a committee as a whole worked very, very well. But you have to look at how people react and what information they take out of it. Nobody's trying to hide anything. And, I mean, you as a trustee have sat on this board, and you've only been in the televised meetings for, 6 years that we've been doing it? The preceding 22 years, they weren't televised. So, this whole thing that because it's not televised, we're trying to hide anything, I don't think.
I think we can come up with something to overcome that objection. It's going to be.
We could discuss that in the committee.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
Okay,
going to have staff. Well, there's going to be staff there, Bob. I mean, we're not looking to put the staff on the spot, and this is going to put it in. It's going to be open to the public. So I'll talk to the other municipalities. I'm sure they've had these similar objections. So we'll see what they came up with.
Yeah, so we have a motion, okay, last one.
Right, yeah,
Trustee
just
Desmond.
one last, just to give you an example of what we're talking about. I mean, I called to postpone the changes to the building ordinance. I mean, this is a huge package that we do need to discuss, and we need to ask, fire department, building, public works, the building inspectors, what exactly it is they're asking us to change. So, I mean, that is just an example of what we should be discussing in these meetings.
Madam Mayor.
Okay, so,
Madam Mayor. Just a
last one,
quick
and
comment.
I mean it this time.
Hold on a minute. That's a great example Tim brought up.
Right.
Another great example where we need to, be some interaction with staff, and we have questions to vote on something that's going to make a difference. We're well informed, and we're vetting it, all of us together.
Great.
So it's not going to be this is going to be more of an opportunity where we're vetting something with all of us, not a couple of us or one of us. It's all of us. So the more I think about it, I think it's going to be more transparent.
Okay, please call the vote.
Trustee
Thank you.
Quinlan?
Is this?
Motion to postpone till next
Okay,
time.
yes. Got where we were
Trustee
again.
Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, 16. This is Guzman and Lopez Release and Settlement Agreement. May I have a motion, please, on item 16?
Motion to approve.
Properly moved by Trustee Vorder,
Second.
seconded by Trustee Carberry. Any discussion on this item? Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to item 17.
Okay.
Village Clerk's Report.
Disbursement Resolution Number 2014-02. Approval of semi-monthly disbursement Number 2014-02 dated January 28th, 2014 in the amount of $555,081.77.
May I have a motion, please, on item 17A?
Motion to pay the bills, Madam President.
Properly
Second.
moved by Trustee Vorder, seconded by Trustee Carberry. Any discussion? Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Yes.
One more little thing, Mayor. The gubernatorial primary election will be held on Tuesday, March 18th. Early voting begins at the Oak Lawn Village Hall, March 3rd, and continues every day through March 15th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the last day to register to vote in the Oak Lawn Clerk's office is February 18th. If you have any questions, just contact me at the Village Hall. Thank you. That's it.
Great. Okay. Item 18, Village President's Report. 18A is a request to approve a Class F liquor license. This is restaurant, beer, and wine only for Oak Lawn Restaurant, 5769 West 95th Street in District 3. May I have a motion, please, on 18A?
Move for approval.
Second.
Properly moved by Trustee Straight, seconded by Trustee Desmond. Any discussion, please, on this item?
I may have a conflict of interest. my family eats there every Sunday after church, so I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that.
Well, now you can get a beer as well.
You have no conflict.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Trustee Warder.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out this is another example of expansion of gambling. This is a family restaurant that's looking for a liquor license, I'm sure, to put in machines. Just want to make that point.
I don't know if they can get it with beer and wine only.
I think they
If
can.
they pour, they can.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
the understanding, yeah.
Right.
Trustee Desmond.
Just to reiterate what you were saying, sorry, but this is exactly the type of business that I believe that the previous board passed as gambling to assist these types of long-established businesses in Oak Lawn.
You know, Tim, I'm going to vote for it, but I just want to point out what's happening there.
Any other discussion on this item? Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to 18B, this is ordinance 1402-10, an ordinance increasing the number of Class F liquor licenses that can be issued in the Village of Oak Lawn. This is for Oak Lawn Restaurant Incorporated, 5769 West 95th Street. May I have a motion on 18B, please?
Motion to approve.
Properly moved by Trustee Vorderer,
Second.
seconded by Trustee Oliniechek. Any discussion? Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. 18C is the Planning and Development Commission Advisory Panel appointments. As you may recall, we elected, or appointed, excuse me, a chair for this advisory panel at the last meeting. We requested names to be submitted. My two recommendations for appointment is from District 1, Rita Olson, and from District 4, John Crivelone. We're going to vote on these individually. Let's have a motion, please, for Rita Olson in District 1.
Motion to approve.
Properly moved by Trustee Oliniechek.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Desmond. Any discussion on this item? Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Great. And 18C still, we have the name John Crivelone from District 4. May I have a motion, please, for his appointment?
Motion to approve.
Properly moved by
Second.
Trustee Vorderer, seconded by Trustee Oliniechek. Any discussion? Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 18D is the appointment of adjudicator and counsel for Police and Fire Commission, and this is Odelson and Stirk Limited. May I have a motion, please, on item 18D?
Motion to approve.
Properly moved by Trustee Vorderer.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Oliniechek. Any discussion on this item?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, Trustee Straight first, then Trustee Quinlan.
Well, first of all, two adjudicator positions were originally held by two individual attorneys until this board, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, followed the Phelan hit list and fired the two attorneys who were serving us well. Instead, the village manager appointed the prosecutor to this position after he provided 10 campaign workers to the mayor's campaign. That was wrong, and we all know it was wrong. But this action tonight doesn't fix the problem associated with the Cunningham appointment. We still have an appointment here without the request, without a request for proposals or request for qualifications. We have a no-bid contract to Bert Odelson, who donated $4,300 to Mayor Barry and sent a letter to all of the voters supporting her and attacking the previous mayor. This board campaigned, apparently they forgot about this, but they campaigned on a promise to comprehensive ethics reform, including an end to rigged bids, backroom deals, and sweetheart contracts. This board campaigned on a promise to serve with honesty, integrity, and 100% transparency. In my opinion, we aren't being transparent or ethical when we give a no-bid contract without any RFP being issued to a campaign contributor who donated $4,300 to the mayor's campaign.
Okay, I'm going to go next, actually. Trustee Straight, you make me crazy. You talk about someone who volunteered to write a letter I did not solicit, like it's something evil. That's not correct. It is not something evil. You know, you failed to mention contributions from both Mr. Cunningham and Mr. Odelson to you. And these are contributions you personally solicited. You know, it's crazy. 2009, 2010, 2011, Mr. Cunningham donated money. You've never disclosed that. And no, I'm going to talk.
I don't have to disclose it. There's no violation, Mayor.
You don't. Trustee
It's not a
Straight,
violation.
I'm talking.
Okay.
You talk about someone who walked the streets for change as if it's something evil. It's not. And soliciting money.
There's
from,
no change. You're not change.
Trustee Straight? Silent, please. You solicited contributions from Mr. Odelson in 2010, 2011, twice in 2011. You did not disclose this, and yet you berate someone for a letter that was not solicited and was properly disclosed. It's inappropriate, and I'm going to give the floor to Trustee Quinlan.
I'm not berating Mr. Odelson. I'm berating you.
Trustee Straight, Carol?
I just think, kind of in a lot in agreement with what Trustee Stride is saying. I think what really bothers me, it really bothers me, is that this is no bid. And let's say, if our attorneys are saying this is totally legal, what we're doing, a no bid contract, giving it to a big campaign contributor, I would say and warn this board and say, you know what? There is something about appearances. And I think it appears that this is wrong. And I would think that a lot of residents think it's flat out wrong. Why wouldn't you even at least attempt to bring in two other attorneys into the mix? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Again, it's about the process.
Well,
and Oak Lawn, we should put ourselves at the top top of the bar. So why are we doing this when we are saying money was exchanged, given to you, given to Jane?
There was no money given
and
to
Jane's
me.
not a voting member, so
Don't bring me up. I'm not a voter.
that's what I just said. You're not, but you are on this board.
telling
And
Ma.
so my point being is we need to set the bar higher and saying it's not okay that we are just handing this to one of the most political attorneys out there.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor, when I get a chance, I'd like to.
No, we have Trustee Border, then Trustee Carberry, then Trustee Olenichek,
Why
and I'm
put
going.
ourselves
Trustee Border.
Yeah,
in that
first
situation?
off, I'd like to point out that Bert Olson has been a resident of Oak Lawn for as long as I can remember, 40-plus years. He lives in my district, okay? He has been active in Oak Lawn politics. He has every right to support a candidate and donate money. And he donated none to me, and I'm going to vote for this. He's been a powerful attorney for the good, and I think bringing him on board is a positive.
You
That's
know,
all I
Okay,
have
I
to
think
say.
we're Trustee Carberry.
that's the only thing I wanted to say too, is he didn't give me any money as well. I want that for the record. No, I'm kidding. But there's a friend of mine gave me a book a few weeks ago that I shared with a couple of the new trustees, with Desmond and Vorderer. And it's an excellent book for newly elected officials. And it makes a lot of great points. And now that I read the book, I see a lot of the things in action, because the guy's done it a long time. He's been a village attorney in over 50, similar to Bert. He's been in the game for years. And there's one thing I could say. I think it's a pretty cheap way to be able to use somebody who's been in the game for so long as a resource. He's offered his services that way to me, and I'm sure he may have done that to any of the other trustees for free. And it's another resource, just like we have Paul and our attorneys for a resource, and Pat, and they do a great job for us. he's another resource and a resident. Like Terry said, it's been here a long time. I don't, it's not a, we're not giving him a 4-year it's not a 4-year contract, and if he's not doing the job, he can go. But this isn't, I don't see this being a big lucrative contract for
It's not that.
Olson.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Trustee Oliniechek.
I think, did you question his experience level and his ability to do the job?
I did not.
I thought I heard that. That's kind of funny because when I was a junior trustee, now I'm a senior trustee with you are the one who introduced me to Bert Odelson and recommended him as one of the best municipal attorneys in the city of Chicago and maybe in the whole state of Illinois. Your words exactly. Now, I'm just confused that we want the best for the village of Oak Lawn. It's not, Larry, this is not costing us any more money, is it?
Probably a little less.
Costing us less money, and that's what we owe the taxpayers is if we have relationships with people, we are here to try to do the best deal that we can, get the best people. Actually, I think we've done a great job by getting Bert to be able to do the adjudication as one of the premier lawyers in the state of Illinois, but here's one of the other things. He's been doing it while we were going through this whole legal discussion about if Mr. Cunningham could do it or not. He was being employed contractually by Mr. Cunningham in his ability to do that. So he's been doing the work for less money than we were paying in the previous year. And you remember when this whole thing started out, I know you're going to want to say it's political and it has to do with fundraising and this and that. I mean, I know for a fact you did Bert Odelson's roof, so you were making money off of doing his roof. And you may even do some of his energy aggregation. So if anybody here at this board has anything to get out of the deal, it's you. I don't understand why you don't have a conflict of interest with that. But moving forward, I look at it's saving the residents of the village of Oak Lawn money. It's getting a job done with a quality attorney, known entity, and I just wish, Bob, you could be a great person to work with if you got out of this whole thing. It's a conspiracy. Everything's a conspiracy, and people are trying to undermine and do bad things for the village. This clearly is an example of no conspiracy. We're doing well for the village of Oak Lawn.
All I said, I didn't say that he
And Trustee
wasn't.
Desmond is next, actually, and then I'll call on you, Trustee Straight.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on pretty much what everyone else has said. You know, the board, I mean, we should not be questioning in any way Mr. Odelson's credentials, and I'm surprised that someone of his experience and stature would even, consider, coming to the village of Oak Lawn.
Okay,
I think we should be grateful that he's actually accepting this position.
Trustee Straight.
The point that I made is I did not question his qualifications. What I questioned was why we did not do a request for proposals or request for qualifications and have an open bidding process. This is a no-bid contract. Now,
it's an appointed position.
Trustee Carberry did say that Bert Odelson is so wonderful, he's been offering his services for free to the trustees. And I would just like to know if you would like to elaborate on that a little bit.
What do you mean?
You
Elaborate on
said
what?
he's been offering his services.
He said, no. He said he's been, just like a lot of people, all public officials, Bob, anybody that's been in the game in politics for a long period of time, they have experience in budgets. They have experience in running municipalities. People they share best practices. These are smart things to do. Companies do them. Politicians should do them. And that's it, sharing information. He said, feel free to call on anything that comes up. It's a resource.
Yeah, but
that's a resource.
You got to be careful. You got to be careful what you say to Bob because it could. I mean, Bob's not going to tell you that his business partner Dennis Brennan got a $500 donation.
Yeah, I don't want to go in.
Okay,
But I'm just concerned. I'm just concerned with the way that it's picked and choose and trying to make something that's very transparent, very legal. It's an appointment that this board has a right to go ahead and appoint. That is saving the village money. That's what we will have to live with. Fact. Over a previous year of what it cost for us in service.
Yeah, and last comment before we call the vote. I seem to remember a discussion, and I apologize, I could not look up the minutes for the exact quote, ran out of time, but I remember Trustee Straight, you arguing very eloquently how for professional services, you don't, you want the best. And sometimes getting the cheapest isn't the best. So when you say submit it, send it out for bid, that was something that you were saying quite the opposite, not even a year
You're
ago.
right, I did say that, but what you said is that you're going to, when you ran for election, you said, I'm going to put an end to no-bid contracts, backroom deals, and sweetheart deals.
That's correct. That's why we're discussing
You didn't
it
put
at
an
a
end to
public
that at
meeting.
all.
That's
At
your
all.
opinion.
So,
Thank you for your opinion. We're calling the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
No.
Trustee Oliniechek?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
With great pride, yes.
Trustee Streit?
no.
Motion passes 4-2, and I just have one comment. Madam Mayor, I've known Bert Odelson from the neighborhood in Oak Lawn for over 40 years. He played softball at Lawn Manor. He's friends with so many people in Oak Lawn. He's coached baseball for years, so give him a little credit on that, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, general village matters. I do have a few items, and I apologize. I want to say them all. The Emergency Management Agency of Oak Lawn is doing a free CPR class for residents. This is a 90-minute class. It's the Saturday of Valentine's Day weekend. That's Saturday, February 15th. Save a heart, save a life, show you care. Parents, if you have babysitters and you want them to learn CPR, young parents, if you want to learn CPR, any interested resident. We all might need CPR if this meeting goes on a little longer, but, anyway, you can register for that course on the village website. There's a link, and there's a link also on the village Facebook page. So nice to do that. With respect to snow shoveling, we talked a lot about plowing last time. We're getting a lot of complaints now about businesses up and down 95th Street not plowing, not shoveling. In particular, children who are forced to walk down 95th on the way to school. District 122, as you know, is right at 95th and Ridgeland there. The kids have to walk on 95th, and that is certainly dangerous. We saw a family who lost one of their children, in our public comments section. We don't want more tragedies in Oak Lawn. Everyone has to do their share on this. Please, business owners, shovel, and residents also, if you have a sidewalk, please make sure it's accessible. Condos as well. We're getting quite a few complaints, and it's difficult. I just want to make a comment. Trustee Straight, I appreciate that you are calling for emails for, a community newsletter. I still feel, and Chief Murray and I are both in agreement, that if someone wants alerts regarding criminal activity in their neighborhood, that should come from Everbridge. Our Everbridge system is easy to sign up. And Trustee Straight, I hope you would take the lead in registering your residents for that. I would hate to see someone relying on an email and thinking that they're safe when they're missing out an important alert on Everbridge. So please don't overlook that. That's very important.
But let's not forget that only 10%, using your own words, of the residents are signed up for Everbridge.
That's why we need your help doing that. So your call for personal emails, I'm certain you would never do anything inappropriate with those emails. However, please remember, we do want Everbridge to be our primary method of communication for.
I hope you're not discouraging me from alerting the residents on
Trustee
how to
Straight,
be
I'm just
safe.
saying what I'm saying.
After 28 years, I commend you. You're
So
finally doing it.
I think that's all I'm going to say. We need a motion now on item, 19. This is a motion to go into an executive session, 2014-01, for the purpose of probable or imminent litigation, and 2, for the purchase or lease of real property. May I have a motion, please, on item 19? Properly moved by Trustee Carberry.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Vorder. Any discussion? Please take the vote.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek?
No. Just kidding, yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Carberry?
Yes.
Trustee Vorder?
Yes.
Trustee Straight?
Okay, thank you.
Motion passes.
So we're going to clear out the room.
Carberry.
Yes.
Trustee Vorder. Trustee Straight.
Yes.
Motion passes.
21 on the agenda is approval of executive session items.
And here, I think we should, I can either read it into the record, or if that's okay, I just want to read, I'm just going to read 2 through 5, so everybody knows. It wasn't part of the open packet, so I just wanted to, before we take action, it's done in open session. So, number 2, the union hereby agrees to withdraw all pending and contemplating complaints, charges, grievances, or litigation that is filed against the village with prejudice, including but not limited to the unfair labor practice charge S-CA-14-091 and S-CA-14-105 and grievance number 13-9. The parties agree that the union will file the necessary withdrawal notices referred to in this paragraph after the execution of this agreement. The village agrees to split payments totaling $250,000 evenly among bargaining unit members that are not hired by the village subcontractor Norcom for any reason. This sum will be paid out to each of these employees in 4 equal lump sum payments over a period of 4 months. The first check is to issue with the regular village payday to begin January 31st, 2014 and end April 30th, 2014. Number 4, for any current emergency telecommunicators that enroll in the COBRA healthcare coverage on or after January 22nd, 2014, the village will pay for half of the eligible COBRA costs for a period of 3 months to the telecommunicators that provide documentation to demonstrate that they are currently enrolled in COBRA and the cost of their COBRA insurance enrollment. The village number 5, the village agrees to pay the difference in the employee's health insurance contribution costs for any current telecommunicators that are hired by Norcom for the difference in the cost between the employee's current contribution costs for the village health insurance and the employee's contribution costs for the Norcom health insurance. The village will bridge this cost on a monthly basis to cease on December 31st, 2014. It goes on, paragraph 6 to 15 with some releases, and they withdrew a grievance that had been set to go to arbitration in exchange for it as well.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Properly moved by trustee Carberry, seconded, I believe, by trustee Olenichek. Any discussion on this item?
Yes, Mayor.
Trustee Straight.
Yes, I think that this should be called the meeting of we were wrong. The manager and the attorney told us we could walk away from a negotiated collective bargaining agreement with the union. They were wrong. They told us we would save $890,000 over 2 years, but now we're paying a penalty, a settlement, of $250,000 to the union members that weren't hired by Norcom. We are also paying half of the COBRA payment for each of those employees for 3 months. We're also paying the 5 hired telecommunicators.
We just read that. Can you please?
We're also paying the 5 hired telecommunicators the difference in the employee contribution that they paid the village compared to the employers hired at Norcom.
Is this different than what the attorney just read?
Yes, it is.
Okay, please continue.
Over a year ago, we paid PSAP, Concepts and Solutions, to come up with a plan for privatization. Let's not forget that we paid our attorneys and our share for the mediator for the 9-hour bargaining session of mediation. And for the last year, we've been paying our attorneys to work on this issue. In total, we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the bad advice that we received on this issue, and I cannot support this settlement.
Well written.
Thank you.
Interesting you didn't share any of that with us until the camera turned on, Trustee Straight. Thank you. And any other comments on this item? Yes, Larry.
Given the hour, I'll keep it brief, but I think I would be remiss if I didn't share with the board and with our president. We've always said we're a fair employer, and we work very hard under the law with the presence of a mediator who, in my opinion, did an outstanding job trying to bring both parties together and come up with a fair solution, because that's how the village operates. And that was approved and that was executed by the representatives of the union, which you have before you for your consideration tonight and what you'll be voting on. I must tell you that it makes it very difficult for a manager and your village attorney as chief negotiator to negotiate when there's a divided board and when there's a message that's given to employees that the message is not really the factual message. And that leads to consequences, in this case, economic, quite frankly. That's all I have, Mayor.
And if I could, just on the likelihood of success, I don't think I ever said that. Had we litigated this to the eventual end, that we would have lost this case. It is still my belief now that had we gone forward and litigated this all the way, we would have been proven right at the end of the day before the labor board and the any other appeals from there.
Proven right that we could fire people under a union
Trustee
contract?
Straight?
Are you kidding?
That's my opinion.
Please recognize the chair if you have comments. Trustee Straight, thank you. Any other comments?
Obviously, they saw weakness.
I got one
Trustee
comment.
Desmond.
No, as an attorney, I don't know if you can talk about this or not, but during the course of this, I seen the disciplinary record of some of these dispatchers, and I'll be honest with you, it was atrocious. It's no wonder that they weren't hired by the new company. Sending people to the wrong addresses. I don't want to go into that. It's after the fact. I've just, based on what else went on today, I think that's something that needs to be discussed.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully this is the end of it, that it'll never again have to be discussed. But
I will say that the union never brought up in the mediation with the state mediator that was sent here from Springfield, from the labor board, that they thought they could have their jobs back or there was a contract. We only talked about negotiation. I think that was reflective of some of their work habits and things that had gone on. They weren't fighting for their jobs. They were only fighting to settle the contract and to get, we were here to help them bridge the gap. And I think that's what we were trying to do, is to help some of these folks on their way out the door.
And that's called effects bargaining at the end of the contract.
That's correct.
And again,
Make sure you write that.
if I could, President and Board, one thing that Pat O'Donnell has provided to this board that I think is just immeasurably valuable is thinking over multiple years from a planning and strategic and financial standpoint. That's the discipline he has from his background in the private sector. And he's been immensely, I think, helpful to staff, and we've enjoyed that relationship. This decision you're making is a long-term decision. Once the impact bargaining and the mediation that took place and the approval of this agreement is completed, you're talking about one-time payments versus long-term. We already know we have a dollar amount, what it will cost for the next 5 years. If we like the services of Norcom, we can continue in year 2, year 3, year 4,
We call
and
the
5.
vote, Lou.
Fixed dollars.
Yeah. Okay, let's call the vote.
Trustee Quinlan.
Yes.
Trustee Oliniechek.
Yes.
Trustee Desmond.
yes.
Trustee Carberry.
Yes.
Trustee Vorder.
Yes.
Trustee Straight.
No.
Motion passes 5-1.
Thank you.
Okay, we have item 22, a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Properly moved by trustee Oliniechek,
Second.
seconded by trustee Carberry. Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes.